All right, it's time to start. Let's start the streaming. And we're live. How's it going, guys? It's Ideas of Ice and Fire. I'm here with Lucifer means Lightbringer. And
Hello.
yeah. And we're going to talk about Quaithe and Marwyn and maybe some other stuff too. So, just going to give everybody some time to kind of like flow in, you know. So, yeah. Oh, crap, yeah. I forgot. I'm supposed to do my intro. Wait. Pretend I didn't say anything. Yeah, listen to the pretty music. Everyone just listen to the music and pretend that I'm not talking. This is supposed to be the buffer, in between for the people to come in. But for some reason, I just started talking. I know you guys can still hear me. I didn't mute myself. Anyways, it's too late now. Let's just start. So, what's up, dudes? We're here. It's me and Lucifer, the Dark Lord himself, the spawn of hell. No. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about Marwyn and Quaithe, and then some other Song of Ice and Fire stuff, and of course whatever you guys we'll be taking your questions too. I have some Patreon questions too that I want to answer, and in fact, the title of this video was a Patreon thing. And speaking of Patreon, check me out on Patreon because there's like some exclusive content, and I've decided that I will be adding exclusive content to Patreon about twice a month. And right now, there's already like an hour of content on Patreon, so check that out. The link is totally on the screen right now. It says it right there. You should totally look at it. But yeah. Yes, you're right. You're right, Joran van Dirk Art. Lucifer is Latin for Lightbringer. And that's actually one of the things that I do talk about on Patreon. So, Lucifer, introduce yourself to the people that might not know you.
Hey, everybody. I usually go by LML, and I have
Lucifer.
a blog and podcast about symbolism and mythology in A Song of Ice and Fire, but it's not boring. It's way more exciting than it sounds.
Yeah, it is quite
And,
interesting.
and you can check out my stuff at lucifermeanslightbringer.com. I've got my main claim to fame is I have a theory about the long night being caused by a moon meteor, some sort of a meteor impact, creating an impact winter, plus some magic and the others and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun stuff. Check it out if you want, but I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, a lot of you. Let's start off with Quaithe, I guess. Now, I've done videos about Quaithe in the past. She's a big part of my understanding the birth of dragons series, and I have a lot of convoluted ideas about what's going on with Quaithe. But basically, the way it goes, the way my whole thing goes. See, this is the type of person that gets blocked. This Sean O'Duke guy. Yeah, I'm blocking him myself. Yeah, you're gone. But yeah, back to Quaithe. So my whole idea is that Quaithe is not actually from Ashai. Because when she comes up to Daenerys when Daenerys is at Vase Telluro and Quaithe and the other people come up, Quaithe introduces herself as Quaithe from the Shadow. It's Quaithe from the Shadow. And generally in the book series when people talk about Ashai, they say it's Ashai by the Shadow. So they're making a distinction between Ashai and the Shadow. So to me, the fact that Quaithe says I'm from the Shadow indicates that she's from the Shadowlands themselves. And the reason that's relevant is because in the world of Ice and Fire, in the sidebars, there's a secondary legend about how the Valyrians were able to, learn magic and tame dragons. And it says that people so old they had no name came from this place called the Shadow and taught them all of this knowledge. And I go through this in my, like I said, my Understanding the Birth of Dragons video. But if you look at Daenerys in the first book, it's like there are two independent wills being forced on Daenerys' mind. And there's one that's constantly saying, wake the dragon, wake the dragon. And then there's one that's kind of oppressive and it's like trying to kind of hold her back. That's the icy breath that she feels on the back of her neck in one of the dreams. And so I go through that in those videos. And I think Quaithe, her intent was to bring dragons back into the world. And I think that Quaithe could have been around for quite a while. How many accounts do you have, dude? It's the same. Like, holy shit. I think that Quaithe could have been around
Wait,
at the
wait.
time.
Let me. Oh, let me do the next one. Sorry. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I think Quaithe could have been around um, during the time of Ares and also during the time of Aegon the Fifth, because both of these people became obsessed with fire, became obsessed with dragons in the same way that Daenerys did. Daenerys, over the course of book one, she grows more and more and more and more obsessed with those dragon eggs, and then finally, she wakes up the last time and she has all this knowledge that she didn't have before and she knows exactly what to do. So someone planted that knowledge in Daenerys' mind, and I think it was Quaithe. Because Quaithe obviously shows up again with all this cryptic. Like, Quaithe doesn't show her face until after that. After the dragon's born, that's when Quaithe finally shows up. And she's always saying something about, watch out. People are going to try and take your dragons. You need to do this. You need to do that. So she guided her in her dreams, and now she's guiding her again. And the fact that we know Quaithe has a glass dragon from A Dance with Dragons, she shows up to Daenerys. She says the glass candles are burning. And the fact that someone was inside of Daenerys' dreams, and the fact that we know that glass candles, you can enter people's dreams, to me, it was obviously Quaithe that was manipulating Daenerys' mind that entire time. Now, you might ask yourself, but to what end? Well, here's where I get really convoluted. That some of you I might lose some of you, but in the heart of darkness, in Ashai is the city. Not in Ashai, but in the heart of darkness, in the shadow, is Stagai. Now, Stagai is obviously a Lovecraftian reference. There's like beast and baleful beast or whatever live there, and it is said that only shadowbinders who hide their face from the sun will even have the heart to enter upriver in the Shadowlands. I think that Quaithe is the servant of some entity, or even not even just like a magical entity, like some group of people that live in the shadow and have some interest in spreading dragons throughout the world, have some interest in spreading fire. And that's what I think Quaithe was doing. I think Quaithe tried with Aegon the Fifth, and it failed, leading to the tragedy at Summerhall. I think she might have tried with Ares, and it failed, and he just kind of went mad. And I think she tried again with Daenerys, and this time she actually succeeded. All right. Now, I'm not totally sure what this group or this entity that she is a part of. I'm not exactly sure what they want to do with the dragons, but like if I'm looking at it from like a grander, perspective, I would say, like I talk about this in my video, the grand game as well. I would say that, there is a game being played. There's kind of a game of ice and fire. There's someone that's playing with, ice, and there's someone that's playing with fire, and it's like a greater game that, men can't really grasp, but these higher beings do. And so that's my spiel on Quaithe, and I do have more to say, but I'm gonna let Lucifer give his ideas next. So go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I'm mostly on the same page with you there. I hadn't thought of the idea about Quaithe literally being from the Shadowlands beyond Ashai. It's hard to draw the distinction. I mean, it's just like pushing the evil meter from 10 to 11, I guess.
Yeah.
But you're totally right that wherever she was born or however old she is, we are told that only the Shadowbinders can go up the River Ashen to Stigai, the Corpse City. So yeah, I mean, my theory is that there's like,
There he
how
is
the
again,
Bloodstone.
Lucifer. Get him. He's creating so many accounts. He just
Oh man. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that it's very possible that the thing that is making Ashai and the entire Shadowlands so toxic is a meteor sitting there in Stigai at the heart of the shadow. So if you think about, you're obviously very familiar with Lovecraft stories,
mm-hmm.
and in Lovecraft stories, especially The Color Out of Space,
Yes.
a meteor can be just like this toxic thing that basically leaches all the color and life out of the land. And I
Mm.
think he's doing something similar. You'll recall the Bloodstone Emperor fable, and for those of you who may not be familiar with the world of Ice and Fire, it's just a legend from the far east about the long night. And the legend from the east, basically, it says there was the rightful ruler, the Amethyst Empress, who was usurped by the Bloodstone Emperor. And now somebody's saying there's something wrong with my mic already.
I don't hear anything.
Huh. Anyways, so the Bloodstone Emperor was, the important thing is he's remembered as causing the long night and also worshiping a black stone that fell from the sky. And there's every indication that this might have something to do with the Shy itself. And so I think that black stone is basically what's sitting in Stygi and turning the whole Shadowlands all dark and, all that stuff. So I definitely think that Quaithe is tied to this area, and that the ability to go there has some sort of importance. But what do you think about the theory that Quaithe is Shiera Seastar? Because I kind of like that theory, and people are mentioning it in the chat.
See, I have heard it, but I'm not too familiar with that theory, but I have heard it. I haven't heard it in a while. Do you know the intricacies of it? Can you like give me the rundown of it?
Yeah, well, so Shiera Seastar was the lover of Bloodraven,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a little bit of a love triangle because Bittersteel, Aegor Rivers, was in love with Shiera Seastar as well as Bloodraven, and Bittersteel and Bloodraven were on opposite sides of the various Blackfire wars. So, but Shiera Seastar was basically a sorceress. She
Mm-hmm.
was rumored to, use sorcery to keep her looks young. There's no real record of her dying. She's just kind of in the story. She's mentioned, and then there's no mention of what happens to her or anything. And then there's I forget what the rest of the details were, but basically the idea is that um, Bloodraven and Shiera Seastar had a child, which was Melisandre. And
Mm.
so basically Quaithe would be Melisandre's mother, according to the theory.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I kind of like it, but then there's a lot that kind of I think Melisandre is too old to be the daughter of Bloodraven. I think she's older than Bloodraven.
That would make her like about 150,
Yeah,
I
so
think.
I think she's even older. I think that Melisandre could be 200 or 300 years old, if not more. I think that is I think there's a strong possibility that Melisandre was around in the time of Old Valyria. Like I honestly do, because
Yeah, anything's possible.
yeah,
You just don't know.
I'm gonna get this super chat. Thank you, Davis, for your super chat. He says, I haven't heard your official opinion as far as I can tell, but what is your LML's opinion on R plus L equals J being false in the books? That's a question for you, LML.
I personally do not think that that's going to be a different answer in the books. And even before we got the answer in the show, I was quite convinced that RLJ was the answer in the book. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask about that.
Yeah. So, see, like I have a lot of different ideas about it. I think that it potentially could be different, but like right now at this point in my life, I'm leaning towards, John being Lyanna and Rhaegar's son. Right now I am. But I think there are other ways that it could potentially go, but like the more I look at it and the more I look at the evidence, the more I see that, that's probably what's going on. Because I always remember in that Bran chapter where Bran looks at Ned and he sees Ned praying, and he's praying to the weirwood, and he says, please forgive me. Let them grow up as close as brothers. He says, let them grow up as close as brothers. Now, who is he talking about? Because if John is his son, it that doesn't make sense. They are brothers. But if it's not his son, it makes sense that he would say as close as brothers because they're not brothers, but he wants them to grow up as close as brothers. And it looks like we got another super chat. Ian Ross, thank you so much for your super chat. Can squishers become White Walkers, and do they freeze the water if they try to swim underwater? Also, can the Brindlemen become White Walkers? What are the Brindlemen? I'm not
The
entirely sure.
brindled men, the brindled men are like half human,
Ah,
strange species from Sithorius.
okay, okay. Well, there's not a lot of information on the Brindlemen, I don't think. And as far as the Squishers becoming White Walkers, we only, I mean, I'm not sure. Like as far as we've seen, uh, as far as we actually know, we don't even like we're not 100% where the White Walkers even come from. Like in the show, it seems like in the show it's they're humans, but in the book, I think they could potentially be the children of the forest transformed. But ultimately, I think okay. Do you mean White Walkers or whites? Because if the question is can they become whites, then I think the answer is yes. But as far
Anything can become a white, I think.
yeah, But White Walkers, then it's a little bit more questionable because I think that this gift of this power was given from some demi god or kind of deity, but not really a god that lives somewhere in the land of always winter. So I guess if he really wanted to, he could turn them into White Walkers, but I don't see what use that would because squishers swim and they can't swim in frozen water. So I think if I don't know if the squishers are actually going to show up in the show in the book, but I think they have their own agenda, and I don't think it has a lot to do with what's going on right now. So
Here's
that's
what
my
I
answer.
think, and I think you'll like this, Quinn. I think that what George is saying by sort of using the deep ones in the background sort of history
Mm-hmm.
is he's essentially placing Lovecraft in the same category as Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
Because Tolkien came up with his own language of elves and orcs, and he was, of course, borrowing from Norse myth and stuff. But the point is, like, Tolkien set the template for modern fantasy. And nobody accuses other people of ripping off Tolkien when they have trolls and elves that seem like they could come right out of Lord of the Rings. They're just part of the lexicon now.
Yeah.
And I think that Martin is essentially, by using deep ones that are essentially ripped straight out of Lovecraft, he's basically saying that Lovecraft's creations should be a part of the fantasy lexicon and they should be able to show up anywhere. That's what I think he's saying.
And I agree. I like it a lot. I love the fact that the deep ones have clearly been all over the planet. And see, there's like, and what I love so much about it is that they've been all around and they've left these artifacts, and it makes total sense because they can swim. They can be on one side of the world and then just swim to the other side. So it's perfect. I love it. And if we do get a kraken, see, I see that's the thing is like I kind of want the deep ones to show up, but I feel like he'd have to write it in such a way that it makes sense and it doesn't seem like, oh, now fish people. Because I don't think generally just reading the book series that you get like a tiny like hint of it in Feast when the guy's talking about squishers. But I don't it'd be I feel like there needs to be like more, foreshadowing if they're just gonna show up. Because I don't want to just be like, oh, now fish people. People would be like, what the fuck? What the fuck? But we will see.
Yeah, I think the whole point is basically like he's not actually going to bring the deep ones into the main story, but he wants you to know that they are real. Because in the world of Ice and Fire, he gave us several different accounts of fish people.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether you call them merlings or squishers or deep ones, he's basically telling you that in A Song of Ice and Fire, there are human hybrid species
Yes.
created. And fish people are one of those hybrids. Like, we're also told the Valerians tried to create human animal hybrids at Gogossos, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it just enriches the story. It makes the story just get that much more fantasy. And then we talk about the people on Toad Isle. They've obviously bred with people because the people have like webbed hands and webbed feet and fish faces. You know, so the deep ones are a thing, but probably not gonna show up in the main story because we do know that Martin has said that he wants to write more stories that take place in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe. He wants to, but he just but he has to finish like the main one, right? He has to finish A Song of Ice and Fire. This is what everyone's waiting on. So who knows what he'll do once he's done and once he can just do whatever he wants. Maybe the squishers or deep ones will actually show up. So let's talk about
So,
Marwyn. Okay, go ahead. What were you
oh
gonna
no,
say?
hold on, I got some. I got something on Quaithe for you. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's something called the Church of Starry Wisdom.
Yes.
And the Church of Starry Wisdom is another Lovecraft thing, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But in A Song of Ice and Fire, it's claimed that the Bloodstone Emperor, the same guy who worshipped the Black Stone in the Far East during the time of the Long Night, it said that he was the first high priest of the Church of Starry Wisdom. And
Yes.
it also says the Church of Starry Wisdom persists in port cities to this day. And then there are two people in A Song of Ice and Fire who I believe are members of the Church of Starry Wisdom, and they are the two people that you happen to put on the front of this YouTube video, Quaithe and Marwyn.
Mm.
So for Quaithe, I think the big clue, besides the fact that she comes from a shy, where the Bloodstone Emperor is from, is this passage in A Dance with Dragons. This is Daenerys at the very last chapter when she's out in the Dothraki Sea after she flew away with Drogon, and she's kind of delirious and stuff. And it says she dreamed All her cares fell away from her and her pains as well, and she seemed to float upward into the sky. She was flying once again, spinning, laughing, dancing, as the stars wheeled around her and whispered secrets in her ear. To go north, you must journey south. To reach the west, you must go east. To go forward, you must go back. To touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. And that's the advice that Quaithe repeats to her over and over. So Dany calls out, Quaithe? Dany called, Where are you, Quaithe? Then she saw. Her mask is made of starlight.
Mm.
So it says that the stars were wheeling around her and whispering secrets. So it's literally starry wisdom.
Yeah.
And then she sees that the stars form a mask that is Quaithe's mask.
Hmm.
So she's literally speaking the starry wisdom there, and I feel like that's a pretty good symbolic clue that that's she's a member of the Church of Starry Wisdom.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about both of them, that would seem to indicate that they kind of are on the same side. They both seem to have an interest in protecting dragons. Because, Marwyn is like, okay, I gotta go find Daenerys. Who do you think killed the dragons last time? And
Exactly.
yeah, so it seems like they're kind of on the same side, and they both have got glass candles. And,
And
go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say that was the part of what you said earlier that I really agreed with. Is when you were saying, I'm not sure how many dreams that Quaid has been implanting into people, but she may have been, and I definitely agree that she wanted the dragons to be born and is generally on Team Dragon.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's totally an indicator that they're on the same side. And with Marwyn, uh, see that's the thing. I think that all the Valyrian magic came from, I think it all came from the shadow. I think it all came from the shadow, and dragon glass, not dragon glass, but glass candles are one of the things. And I think that the reason Quaithe has a glass candle is because she got it from there, and I think that the reason Marwyn knows how to use glass candles is because he got the knowledge from that place too. They're both a part of the
Yeah,
secret
I 100.
organization.
Yeah, 100% agree. So, hey, people are saying that you can set an autoban feature to trip on certain words,
Mm-hmm.
like the N word, for example.
Yeah.
So, why don't you see if you can do that real quick, and I will talk more Starry Wisdom.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Marwyn, the big clue that he is a member of the Church of Starry Wisdom is that the rumors about him, it says something about him worshiping at strange dockside temples. Okay, and we're just told that the Church of Starry Wisdom persists in port cities to this day. And the whole idea is that sailors are the ones who typically like astronomy and astrology related religions because they obviously have to know the stars in order to navigate. So it's natural that, and this happens in the real world. So it's not like some sort of strange theory or anything. But the point is that Marwyn's been hanging out at these strange dockside temples, and that sounds like starry wisdom to me. And like you said, Marwyn has specifically been to Asshai. We know that because in A Game of Thrones, Miri Mazdur tells Dany that she learned secrets from a maester in Asshai, and his name was Marwyn. So basically, Marwyn's hanging out in Asshai, exchanging techniques with people like Miri Mazdur and quite possibly Quaithe.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that he's Starry Wisdom fellow makes a lot of sense. And then yes, he's using the glass candle, and he's on Team Dragon clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I think it's yet to be revealed like what their, grand plan is. I think ultimately they are both on Daenerys's side. Well, I think it could go that Quaithe is on Daenerys' side, but I also think it could also go that they're kind of not, and they want to use Daenerys for some other
Oh yeah,
purpose. You know?
yeah, that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
They're on Team Dragon
Yeah, I think
first and foremost.
Daenerys. Yeah, I think Daenerys was an ingredient. I think they needed that blood, that specific Valyrian, Targaryen, whatever blood, in order to birth the dragons, and I think that's what happened to Aegon the Fifth. Because if you look at his story, it's weird. He's a great king all the way up until like the last 7 years of his life or something, and then all of a sudden it was like a switch got flipped, and all of a sudden he just wants to locate dragons. He wants to find dragons. He wants to do it so bad that he ends up killing his entire family by accident by trying to hatch dragon eggs. And I think, and then when you look at Aegon, he was never like the greatest, ruler or anything, but he wasn't mad at first. Like he slowly got crazier and crazier and crazier and became obsessed with fire, and then for some reason thought that burning King's Landing would turn him into a dragon. So I think both of these are cases of people from maybe the Church of the Starry Wisdom, or specifically Quaithe maybe, that have been trying to influence people's minds, and it worked on Aegon the Fifth to an extent, but he just ultimately failed. And then it obviously failed on Ares completely, and he just went nuts. And then with Daenerys, she was the success, and that's what I think is the main thing. And who knows what they want dragons for? Maybe it's simply that that dragons make their magic more powerful, or they want to use the blood of the dragon for something, or anything. It could be anything. Because Quaithe she's kind of shady. Because she's going around telling Daenerys, she's saying, "Don't trust." She's basically saying to Daenerys, "Don't trust anyone but me." Don't the son, don't trust him, even though he's not trying to hurt Daenerys. And then because the people that she's listing aren't necessarily trying to hurt Daenerys. It's like she even says the lion, like Tyrion or something. Like they're not trying to hurt Daenerys. So why is Quaithe just being like, don't trust it? She's basically saying, "Don't trust anyone but me." She says, "Trust none of them." So I think it's kind of weird that she's doing that, because not all of these people are bad.
It could be that basically that Quaithe is just trying to teach a 14-year-old girl that she needs to be on her guard and basically trust no one.
That is true.
Just as a more like just a kind of world advice or whatever. We did see, however, Jorah pull the same exact thing, where Jorah basically tells Dany that she can't trust anyone besides him.
But then
So
he's
we know that that's an idea that Martin writes into some characters.
Yeah, and we know that ultimately Jorah was totally betrayed Daenerys. And see, that's the thing. People that just watch the show don't get it. Like Jorah, I don't like Jorah in the book at all. Like he sold Daenerys out. He's the reason that her child is dead. He's the reason that he's the reason that Drogo is dead. Like and then when Daenerys finds out about it, he's like super self-righteous. And that's the reason that she banishes him. Not she almost let him stay, but he was being an asshole and refusing to like own up to what he had done. And so that's the reason that she banishes him. But yeah, like Jorah. I mean, he had his good. He had his like he had his good moments as like a mentor, and like as giving her knowledge and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think that Jorah wasn't good for Daenerys. I don't think he was at all. And then
Yeah,
obviously, go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to agree and say he meant well in a way, but it was very tainted by his own, love, obsession, infatuation, whatever.
Yeah, I think yeah, and yeah, that's another thing that's kind of not in the show is that like Jorah is not only in love with Daenerys. There's one point where he literally just grabs her and just like kisses her. He literally assaults her. And the thing is, it was weird for me reading it because I'm just thinking in my head, oh my god, she's like 12. She's like 12 or 13, and this man's like in his 40s. But Drogo was like 42, so it's different. It's a different society, different world. But yeah,
Yeah,
he's
so I found that quote I was talking about with Marwyn and the Dockside Temples. So let me read it
okay.
here. It's from A Feast for Crows. It's right before, this is the prologue of A Feast for Crows. And it says, "He has a mocking name for everyone," thought Pate, but he could not deny that Marwyn looked more a mastiff than a maester. And as if he wants to bite you.
Hmm.
The mage was not like other maesters. People said he kept company with whores and hedge wizards, talked with hairy Ibonese and pitch-black summer islanders in their own tongues, and sacrificed to queer gods at little sailors' temples down by the wharves.
Church of the Starry
So,
Wisdom.
yeah, that definitely sounds like Starry Wisdom Church to me.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, he's a weirdo and he looks weird. Like like the way George R. R. Martin describes how his head kind of just sits on his shoulders and like juts out. He's a weird looking dude. But what were you gonna
So
say?
here's my basic theory about Marwyn, and it sort of piggybacks on what we've been talking so far. So
Awesome.
what I'm thinking is that Marwyn is sitting at the wall, and or not sitting at the wall. He's watching everything that's going on at the wall. All right. So when he's sitting there with Sam in Old Town, and he introduces the glass candle, they're talking about what it can do. And Marwyn says the sorcerers of the Freehold could see across mountains, seas, and deserts with one of these glass candles. They could enter a man's dreams and give him visions, and speak to one another half a world apart, seated before their candles. Do you think that might be useful, Slayer? We would have no more need of ravens. Only
Mm-hmm.
after battles. The Archmaester peeled a sour leaf off a bale, shoved it in his mouth, and began to chew it. Tell me all you told our Dornish Sphinx. I know much of it and more, but some small parts may have escaped my notice. And then later, he asks, after Marwyn leaves, Sam asks Leo how he knows so much, and Leo just points at the glass candle.
Yeah.
So we're basically being told that Marwyn's keeping an eye on everything with his glass candle. And so what that means is that, well, let me just put it this way: if you're Marwyn, the Maester Marwyn, you believe that the end of the world is coming. You
Mm-hmm.
are concerned about the others. You think that Dany and her dragons are needed to fight the others and save the world. That's basically what Marwyn thinks.
Mm-hmm.
You're Marwyn. You've been using a glass candle to keep an eye on all of this really important stuff. Now, what Marwyn does at the end of A Feast for Crows is he says, "I'm going to get on a boat and go to Daenerys because she doesn't have anyone to advise her." And so, if you're Marwyn and you're getting on a boat to cross half the world and hang out and advise the savior of the world, do you bring a glass candle with you? Of course you do.
Yeah.
There's zero chance that Marwyn didn't bring one of the many glass candles that the Citadel has, at least four, with him. Like, there's just no way. Of course he brought one with him. And so my theory is that he's going to teach Dany to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Because glass candles are ultimately the province of Valyrian sorcerers. And
Mm-hmm.
Dany is going to become, I think, a full-scale Valyrian sorcerer, not just a dragon rider, meaning that she'll be using the glass candle and doing more magical sorceress stuff in the next two books. And
I
the cap off is that, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love it because I think that with her blood, I think it could be more powerful. I do. I think because I think that Valyrian magic works. It's more powerful when you have someone with Valyrian blood. But go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
Well, just so the end of it is that, Martin has sort of said in interviews something along the lines of he originally intended Dany to go to Asshai.
Mm-hmm.
And in book two, Quaithe has an encounter with Dany where she's implying that she needs to go to Asshai. And Dany's like, what will be there? And, she's like, truth.
Yes.
So it's implied that Dany needs to go to Asshai to learn truth. But then later, at some point, Martin decided he wasn't going to take her to Asshai, and he told everyone that in an interview and said, we're not going to see it. So
Mm-hmm.
what I think is going to happen is that Dany is going to use the glass candle that Marwyn brings to quote unquote go to Asshai.
Yeah.
And whatever Martin had in mind for her to learn, whatever dark truth that she needs to learn, she'll learn it in a glass candle vision. And that way Martin can still keep Asshai like mysterious. Like, it would suck to have somebody literally land there in a boat and get off at the quay and walk up and get a hotel. Like, he doesn't want to do that. It would ruin a shot. So
Ruin the
I think we'll
mystique.
just get a glass. Yeah, exactly. So that's my theory.
Yeah. So I like it. I like it a lot because yeah, like that's the thing. If we went to if we had Daenerys land at a shy, like what like it'd get cliche from there. Like what she's gonna do? She's gonna meet someone. They're gonna be like, oh, now I'm gonna tell you the truth. So I think it's much more interesting that she would learn how to use a glass candle. See, I like that theory. It's perfect. Marwyn takes the glass candle to Daenerys. He shows her how to use it. And I think that the visions that she sees with it, like I said, will be even more, potent, even more, visceral and real to her because I think that Valyrian magic is very connected to, Valyrian blood. I think if you've got Valyrian blood, then it'll be more powerful with you. And that's why I think they also needed Daenerys to hatch the dragon eggs. I think that it required, her because like Daenerys, she's like one of the purest. Well, I think she is like the purest person in the world with Valyrian blood right now. The Targaryens bred brother and sister. The bloodlines are pure as hell. Like there's no one else with purer blood than her, because all the other most of the vast majority of the other Valyrians got destroyed, and some of them survived and like interbred. But Daenerys, as far as purity, she's the most pure. And so I think that that's why they needed her to hatch the dragons. And I think that when she does get the glass candle, the stuff that she can do with it will be even better than what Quaithe can do with it and what Marwyn can do with it. Very, very good. Let me see. I got some Patreon questions too. Let me see what I got. Let's see. Okay, someone says Martin, Bobby Sperry on Patreon has said, Martin has hinted that the ending of A Song of Ice and Fire will be bittersweet. Do you think John or Danny will still be alive after the Winds of Winter? After the Winds of Winter, yes. I think they both will be alive after the Winds of Winter. As far as A Dream of Spring, and that's when it gets a little weird. I think cuz look, a lot of people think that Daenerys is going to die, but I think that Daenerys will live. I think that Jon may die. I think Daenerys will live. I think that Daenerys is I think that she is that myth. She is that mythological character that will change the world. And I think when it's all over, that she might even leave Westeros and, fly over to Valyria and, like reform Valyria. I think that she'll go to Valyria, she'll rebuild the Valyrian kingdom, and she'll restart the freehold, but it'll no longer be based on slavery. It'll come back, so you'll get like all that beautiful, stuff. It'll come back, she'll restart it, but the slavery's gonna be gone and it'll be changed. But I definitely they're gonna survive the winds of winter. They've got shit to do in A Dream of Springs, I think. What do you think, Lucifer?
So I tend to. It seems like our choices are either um, the heroes either live on but like broken, kind of like Frodo
Yeah.
in Lord of the Rings, or they'll die, in the course of saving the day. So it seems like nobody's just going to be, if somebody's happy, it'll be like Davos.
Yeah.
Like Davos gets to go
Davos.
home to his wife or something.
Maybe
But I
Theon will live happily ever after, and his penis will grow
think,
back.
well, yeah, man, probably not. So I think I kind of like the idea of John and Danny with like heroic suicide
Mm-hmm.
together. Like just going down and but I don't know. I've got some exotic theories about that, but
Everyone
it's
knows
probably
my crazy theory. My crazy theory is that John and Danny die, and then it's Cersei that has to do all the saving. I'd love that. I know everyone would be pissed, but I'd love it. I'd be like, yes. Okay, another question that kind of ties into what we were just talking about. Kind of True Blue says, I think in the end, magic has to be extinguished from the world. It's sad, but the magical elements ultimately cause death, destruction, and prophetic dreams and ideas of higher power breed war. If magic dies, what would a new world look like? Would John and Beric in the show drop dead? Mel's potions leave her withered? The direwolves and dragons dead? What is magic and what is not? Ah, I feel like that's a really good question. Okay, when it comes to Jon Snow and Beric, I don't think they just drop dead. Well, Beric is already dead in the book, but you said in I don't think they just drop dead. I think that the magic brought them back, and then you just have to survive on your own until the magic goes away. Direwolves, I think direwolves will stay. Dragons, I think dragons will stay. Just like the magical qualities of being around dragons will be gone. I think the animal is just an animal. It survives the way it survives. It's just an animal. It's not gonna just die. But I think that it's a very real possibility by the end all the dragons will be dead. And what would a world without magic look like? Well, look at our world. Or look, like I think that what's gonna happen is that the world Westeros is obviously gonna be ravaged by the war, absolutely ravaged. And out of that, waste and out of that all that shit, the people of Westeros are gonna have to pull themselves back up out of this. And I think that we might see like even a democracy that's forming. It'll be a changed world, obviously. It'll be a changed world. And that's the thing. They've kind of lived most people have lived without magic for like a pretty long time anyways. So it won't be really that different. I think on a grander level it'll be different. I think it'll be felt throughout the world. The fact that magic is gone would be felt on some maybe subconscious level. Like the world would be it'll be just a little bit more empty, a little bit less extravagant and beautiful. But ultimately, it'll still be it'll still be what it is, Westeros. Do you
I
have any?
want to go ahead and agree with the questioner, or at least agree that that's a very good possibility. I think
Mm-hmm.
a no magic ending has a strong chance of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone will just drop dead, like like a turning into a pumpkin. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the dragons could definitely all die in the course of you know fighting against the others. You could see a canceling out where the others are wiped out and the dragons are wiped out, and the children of the forest are receding. So yeah, it might not be like an on-off switch, but I definitely can see magic fading in the world. And Maester Luwin ultimately is correct when he says that sorcery used to be a bigger force in the world than it is now, and that Valeria was the last gasp. He's slightly wrong in that he thinks it's already over at the beginning of the story when clearly it's not.
Hmm.
But by the end of the story, he could be essentially right.
It's
That's possible.
it's dwindling, yeah, and you definitely get that Lord of the Rings feeling. It's that same feeling, like in the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, the elves are leaving Middle Earth, and you get the sense that this world is in a slow dying. The magic of this world is in a slow dying, and the age of men is coming, and that's what I feel like is happening in A Song of Ice and Fire too. Like the magic is kind of this is the last hurrah of magic. This is the last big hurrah, and then after that, it's gonna then it's more like because ultimately what George R. Martin wants to write about is the people. He wants to write about it because he's said time and time again that the only thing worth writing about is the human heart in conflict of his with itself, and he's using A Song of Ice and Fire as a vehicle to tell these very, very, very human stories. And I think that's what people like miss a lot of times. These are human stories. Like the fantasy thing is just it's just a costume. It's just a costume. But this story is ultimately about humans, and I think even in the end, it'll be about humans. It'll be about the people picking themselves up and pulling themselves up out of the scraps of this ruined world. That's it's sad and it is bittersweet, but it's beautiful at the same time.
So hey, let's say a tiny bit about science and magic because I see people talking about it.
Okay, science
Uh,
and
so so listen, George R. R. Martin has said that there is magic in his world. When explaining Dragonglass, he explained that Dragonglass has qualities of fire magic, quote unquote, because in his world there is magic.
mm-hmm.
So if if you want to come up with a theory that's based on the idea that George is deliberately lying to people, like to throw people off, I mean, I understand that train of thought, but I disagree with it strongly. I don't think that George lies to people. I think he's plenty evasive when he wants to be. And so I just do not buy the theory that there's actually not magic in A Song of Ice and Fire and the comet was actually a spaceship and it's all actually science fiction. I don't think there's any basis for that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that what is being used for basis for that is the fact that there are many parallels between A Song of Ice and Fire and George Martin's older stories, which are a sort of science fiction fantasy crossover.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a case that George has been developing a lot of his ideas and narrative themes, throughout his whole writing career. And yes, he doesn't consider sci-fi and fantasy to be different things necessarily. That's sort of true. I'd like to see the exact wording on that. But if I think what he's doing is he's bringing a lot of fantasy into science fiction. Like his science fiction is never what you would call high-tech science fiction, where they focus on warp drives and actual physics and stuff. It's none of that. It's basically like Star Wars. It's space opera. And
Yeah.
so, A Song of Ice and Fire, there is not any science fiction. There just isn't. So, all of those theories are basically saying that all the stuff that looks like magic is actually science fiction. But I don't think there's any evidence for that, and I think that the words of George Martin directly contradict it. And even Preston, whom I have respect for, admits that George says these things, and Preston says that he thinks George is throwing everyone off by saying things that aren't true, and that's fine. I just disagree with that. So, what do you think?
Look, George R. R. Martin spent his whole life writing science fiction, and he writes one, epic fantasy story, and everyone wants to call this science fiction. It's not. It's fantasy. Look, but about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I did a video called "A Defense of Magic," and I haven't seen this video in a while, so I don't know how good it is actually. But in that video, I responded to Preston Jacobs' idea of the world being science fiction, and it's magic. Like I remember I pulled a clip where George R. Martin talks about the unnatural forces in his world. It's magic. It's magic. This is fantasy. And the difference between fantasy and sci-fi is the setting and the characters and the type of characters. In sci-fi, you've got aliens and robots. In fantasy, you've got witches and demons, whatever. But that's where the difference comes in, and I don't think that what George R. R. Martin is doing is gonna be like, oh no, this is some like nuclear wasteland, and that's why all of this is happening. No, that's not what's going on. It is definitely fantasy. There's definitely magic, and that's what it is. Like you said, I like Preston Jacobs a lot. I think he's done a lot for the A Song of Ice and Fire community, but I don't agree with the A Song of Ice and Fire sci-fi thing. And and there is a lot in the A Thousand Worlds universe that's similar to A Song of Ice and Fire, but I think that's just because A Song of Ice and Fire is George R. R. Martin's magnum opus. So he's putting all
Yes,
these ideas that
exactly.
he's putting all these ideas into his biggest story because this is what he's going to be remembered for. Why would he
Yeah,
not?
but yeah, I mean, there's in every old Thousand World story, there is some link to A Song of Ice and Fire. There's
Hmm.
no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So, and let me piggyback on what you're saying. I think Preston's videos breaking down the Thousand World stories are definitely my favorite stuff that he does, and I think he's a great presenter. I think he seems like a cool dude. So definitely not trying to, no personal thing against that. But the whole idea that that Song of Ice and Fire is really science fiction. Yeah, we're basically on the same page. We just strongly disagree with that. So there you
Yeah.
go.
But I have nothing against Preston, so please no one be like I'm hating on
Nope,
Preston Jacobs. Like I have nothing
definitely
against the
not.
guy. Okay. So I've got another Patreon question. This one's from Joanna Sarmento. She says, "Well, this is kind of a silly question. Do do you think it would be possible that George R. R. Martin would decide not to bring John back in the books? He would stay dead for real, not ever coming back, not even as Lord Stoneheart of some kind. And if yes, where do you imagine that would lead the story? Pardon me, my English mistakes, not my language. Also in YouTube, I'm stuck with a silly name, Joanna Barzimi, which was supposed to be read as, but it's me. Just clarifying that. Okay. Well, she's asking what if Jon Snow does not come back in the book? Well, I think it'd be cool because George R. R. Martin did criticize, Tolkien for bringing back Gandalf. He did do that. He was like, when he read Lord of the Rings and Gandalf died, he was like, "Oh shit." And then he kind of felt cheated when he came back. So, wouldn't it be kind of crazy if Jon Snow's just fucking dead? If he like it blow everybody's mind, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But if it were to happen, let's see, Jon Snow dies. I think it kind of fuck them over as far as the White Walkers are concerned, wouldn't it? Like they'd be screwed, right? It'd make it a little bit. I don't know. Where would the story lead if Jon died? Well, then you still have Daenerys, though. Like I think ultimately, like Daenerys, I feel like. See, I know people might hate me for saying this, but I feel like as far as the war against the White Walkers, I feel like Daenerys is more needed than Jon Snow because I mean, come on, she's got dragons. Like I think so. Jon Snow dying, I don't think it would necessarily affect the grand scheme as much as people might think. People
Well, so
people.
let me pose this thought. Jon Snow is basically the only one who understands the urgency of the threat besides Bran.
Yeah,
And if nothing else, Jon Snow serves the role of rallying everybody to the threat.
yeah, yeah.
I
That
also think that his magical blood's important too, but just going with your sort of train of thought.
Yeah, that's true. But then you also have Quaithe, who I think eventually will let Daenerys know what's going on because I think Quaithe is definitely aware of the
Yeah.
common darkness, and then obviously so
Yes.
so is Melisandre, and then I think yeah, like so I don't think Jon Snow dying would actually mess things up as much as people really think. I think Daenerys is actually more important. I really do. Like in my gut tells me that Daenerys is actually more important than Jon.
Let me just make a point real quick. You mentioned the idea that George criticized Tolkien for bringing Gandalf back. Specifically, he was making the point about how John and Beric are diminished when they come back. He had a problem with Gandalf coming back like fresh and clean and more powerful. He thought there should be a cost, and so that's the context of that discussion. He's basically saying, Beric pays a price, Lady Stoneheart pays a price, John will pay a price. That's how it works in his world.
You're right, and I think see we don't get this in the show at all, but I hope that when Jon Snow comes back that he's actually different. I think that he should be a little messed up in the head. I think that he should be a little off.
I think
And
he's going to have white hair.
oh god, that
He'll be Jon Snow. He'll suddenly look like a Targaryen essentially.
he'd really be Jon Snow then. I like that. I
Yeah,
really really like
I
that. I didn't even
totally
think about
think that's
that.
going to happen.
That's really, really cool.
He might even, if we're really lucky, he'll have red eyes too and white hair, and he'll look like his wolf.
Hmm.
But we'll see.
Okay, so I got three more Patreon questions I'm gonna get to. Philip of House Harris asks, Danny has a long way to go in the Winds of Winter. How far into the book will it take her to reach Westeros? How do you think she will handle the news of Aegon winning the battles? I think that Daenerys might not reach Westeros. I think it'll be probably, 2/3 of the way through the book before she gets to Westeros. That's what I think. And as far as how she'll react to Aegon, I'm not entirely sure. I think she won't trust it because Quaithe has already said, "Beware the Mummer's dragon." So I think she'll see Aegon and she'll be like, "Oh, this is the Mummer's dragon." And so I think she'll react, for the most part, negatively, and she'll view him as kind of a rival. That's what I think is going to go on. And I don't think he's the real Aegon. I don't know. I'm not sure how you feel about that, Lucifer, him being the real Aegon or not. But what's your take on that?
So no, I definitely think he's a Blackfire, and I thought that one of the highlights of Tyrion's chapters on the Rhoyne in A Dance with Dragons is his conversation with Fagon, where he's like, "Oh yes, hi Auntie, I'm here and I have a better claim than you, by the way." It's
Yeah.
like he totally works over Fagon's psychology in that conversation, and it's pretty sweet. But Tyrion's putting his finger on a real dynamic that exists. Like, there's, Dany could look at him like, oh, long lost, Targaryen, or could look at him as a rival, even if he is really Rhaegar's son. And if she puts it together with the Mummer's Dragon prophecy, then she may sniff him out. I definitely think they will be at odds. There's not going to be any teamwork there between them.
No, it's not gonna be, hey, friend, let's work together and do this. No, it's gonna be like, this is my throne, and I've got dragons, so get the fuck out of the way. And that's what I think. That's how I think it's gonna go. And ultimately, I think the people of Westeros would probably more likely rally behind Daenerys because I mean she is. I mean, come on, she's the one with dragons. I mean, this guy's claiming that he's the Targaryen king, but she's got actual fucking dragons. So how long do you think it'll take for her to get to Westeros in the book, in the Winds of Winter?
I think definitely a good call. It'll be towards the end of the book,
Yeah,
or 2/3 of the way through the book, kind of like
yeah,
where the Red Wedding was.
yeah. That's what I'm
Um,
thinking.
Let me ask you: have you read Brendan Beavish's series of blogs about Fagon's landing
I have
in
not.
Westeros?
I have not.
Okay, so let me recommend those to you and everybody else. That's Wars and Politics of Ice and Fire.com, I think is the name of the blog. And he's got like a 10-part series about Fagon, and he's really into the military angle. So he's like blocking out all the strategies and intrigues of sort of projecting what it's going to be like when Aegon continues his attack. And basically, the long and short of it is that Aegon is set up to take over King's Landing pretty easily. And so I think what's going to happen is that he is going to roll like a tide and take King's Landing from Cersei. And when Dany gets there, it will be Fagon sitting on the throne. And I think he'll be popular as well
Mm-hmm.
because Rhaegar is the one everybody likes.
Yes.
And he's Rhaegar's son. Dany's the Mad King's daughter. She has dragons. There's all kinds of horrible rumors. And just like the show depicts it being controversial that she's landing with a bunch of Unsullied and Dothraki, like it's very strange. The Golden Company, at least, they look like Westerosi people, besides the elephants. So I think Aegon will be on the throne, and no, it's not the real Aegon. I think he's Blackfire, yes, but he'll be sitting on the throne and he'll be popular,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll be the lie that she has to slay, and so that's going to make it hard for Dany because she won't be welcomed back because he's already got the favor. And the last
Yeah.
thing I'll say is that I think Darkstar will be in the Kingsguard of Fagon with Dawn that he just stole.
Interesting.
It'll be
Well.
a perfect echo of Rhaegar and Arya, except they'll both be fake. Be
Mm-hmm.
fake Rhaegar's son and a fake Sword of the Morning, essentially, an imposter.
Very. I like. See. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. It makes things that much harder for Daenerys because she then has to not only defeat Aegon, but she has to win the love of the people. I mean, she doesn't have to. Like, I mean, I think ultimately, if Daenerys, I think I've always known that she would win the support of the Dothraki eventually, because I remember the House of the Undying prophecy where she sees the crones bowing before her beneath the Mother of Mountains, and I think if she has the support of the crones, that means that ultimately she has the support of the Dothraki. So I think she'll have the Dothraki, she'll have the dragons. If she wanted to, she could just take King's Landing. But I think it'll be kind of a similar situation to what's going on this show. She doesn't want, thousands of people to die. She doesn't want to set the Dothraki on King's Landing and have all the people be raped because that's just going to make people hate her more. Um, and she could say to the Dothraki, "Don't rape," but then are they going to listen to that? You really think the Dothraki are going to listen? They're going to just completely go against this culture that they've had for so long, even if they choose to follow Daenerys. Like they're not just gonna abandon, what they've been doing this entire time. There's nothing that she could do to stop that. I mean, she could punish them afterwards, but that's not gonna stop it. So I think that yeah, I like the idea that he's on the throne, that he's liked, and that she'll kind of have to win favor, or maybe it won't. Maybe like she'll just have to accept the fact that he is on the throne, and it'll be a similar situation with what they're doing in the show with Cersei, that she'll have to work with him to go and fight the others because the problem of who sits the Iron Throne needs to be put on hold. And like I've always said that in the end that the throne won't even exist. Like I think that the throne is it's gonna be a non-factor by the end. It's not even gonna matter who sits the Iron Throne because King's Landing is probably gonna get destroyed. That's what's going on in my head.
So
That's
one
my train of thought.
one thing I think that the show got right was they played up the decision that Dany's going to have to make of pursuing her ambitions for the throne or realizing that the White Walkers are the real threat. I
Mm-hmm.
think she's going to have that same choice, except for instead of Cersei, it will be Aegon.
Mm-hmm.
So she'll at first be fixated on overthrowing this pretender, but then she may be forced to walk away from that and deal with the White Walkers. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I like that a lot because there's no doubt that Daenerys is definitely needed to fight the others. Like I said, I feel like she's those dragons. They're such a tool. They're such a tool against the. It's like the perfect thing against the whites. And I don't know if we'll get Night King Javelin in the book. I don't think so. Thank you, Joe Kitty, for your super chat. Thanks so much. I've got one final super chat. I'm not super chat. A Patreon question, and I'm not sure about this. I was meaning to look this up before I started this, but I forgot. Trinigro asked me, "Did Jon Snow's eyes turn black when he was petting the dragon?" I don't know. I really don't. Like I'd have to look at the scene again and see. I'm just gonna look it up now. I'm not sure. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna see if what I see. Jon
Yeah,
Snow eyes
I
turning
would
black.
tend to I would tend to think this is another thing like the long claw eyes where it's just a trick of the light. It's probably not
Mm-hmm.
intentional, but
Yeah. Let
I
me.
like the idea of John, especially in the show, of John and Danny both riding on Drogon and going out versus the Night's King and like just dying.
I'm looking at it
But we'll see.
now, and I don't think his eyes are turning black. They look really dark, but I do think it's just the lighting thing. Yeah, I can see it now. They're like pitch black. I know you guys can probably hear the music. Yeah, I'm almost certain that's a lighting thing and nothing more. I don't think it was something that they intentionally did. So that's my answer. That was the last of the Patreon questions. So, I guess it's time for chat questions. What you guys got for me? What you guys got? Lucifer, you still
We
there?
should,
Okay, cool.
yeah, totally. We should talk about your new video too. But let's
Oh,
take a couple
yes.
questions first.
Yeah, we got to get to that. My new video, I'm talking about, the children of the forest and, their role in creating the White Walkers because I think it's different from how it happens in the show. I really do. Um, I'm gonna let some. I'm gonna. I'll guess I'll start talking about it and then I'll mark some questions. But look, in the show we have it where the children of the forest create the White Walkers out of men, but in the book I think it's different. And the reason that I think it's different is because okay, one in the show it looks like Leaf herself was there, which doesn't make any sense because she's not thousands of years old. She's only hundreds of years old. Two, what she says in the show is that we were at war, So we did this out of desperation. That's also not true. That doesn't match because the others actually came in a time of peace during the Age of Heroes. So a lot of what they're saying doesn't actually match. So even if the children did have a hand in creating the others, I think that it's different book to show. Like the details are different. Now, nowadays, I think that the others are being made from men because the children now are unwilling to transform themselves. So it's different now. But I think those initial others that attacked were a group of the children of the forest that got resentful and bitter towards men and wanted to take back the lands of Westeros during the Age of Heroes because they saw how mankind was prospering, and that's what I think happened.
So just real quick, the director of episode 6 said specifically that the long claw thing was not intentional; it was an accident. So
Mm-hmm. So
again, unless you think he's lying, that was just a trick of the light.
I don't
I
think he
don't
was
know what else to
lying. They
say.
didn't put any effort into that fucking to making that episode make sense. I don't think they're gonna do any good
Yeah,
thing.
that's the other part of it. Is like that's just we've never seen the show do anything that intentional. I don't
No,
think. But
no.
so hey, let me throw a couple of book quotes at you regarding the others and the White Walkers.
All right.
When the episode first came out that showed the Children of the Forest making the Night King, I quickly put together a Reddit theory based on notes that I already had. So check out these quotes. All right, this is um, Cotter Pike talking to Sam Tarley when after basically Cotter Pike is incredulous that Sam actually killed another and says, "Sam the Slayer," he said by way of greeting. "Are you sure you stabbed another and not some child's Snow Knight?"
Hmm.
So if the children made the others, then the others are Snow Knights. They are
Yes.
a child's Snow Knight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one clue. Then there's a section from The Wayward Bride and A Dance with Dragons where Asha is being attacked by Northmen that are dressed up as trees.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, Asha saw only trees and shadows, the moonlit hills and snowy peaks beyond. Then she realized that the trees were creeping closer. Oh ho, she laughed. These mountain goats have cloaked themselves in pine boughs. The woods were on the move, creeping towards the castle like a slow green tide. She thought back to a tale she heard as a child about the children of the forest and their battles with the first men, when the green seers turned the trees to warriors.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So
So there's something going on there, right?
yeah, and then like I said, it's like I said in my video, it's like you can kind of look at what happened between the Children of the Forest and the First Men as a battle of ice and fire, because George R. R. Martin talks about ice being preservation. That's what the Children of the Forest do. They preserve the forest. They live with the nature and not just on it. They live with it. They all everything that they are is preserved in the trees. And then you have the Ghost of High Heart talking about men with fire in their fist and how they kind of just rage through Westeros, like cutting down the trees, like everything's going extinct. And it's kind of like ice versus fire. So I think there are a lot of hints that the children created the others, but I think that the big difference show to book is that literally the children themselves were transformed into White Walkers. I think that's what happened, and then I think it kind of went wrong, and those corrupted children that were corrupted by this ice magic, they just they became too much even for the remaining children. They thought it was a good idea at first, yeah, wipe out humanity, but then maybe they didn't necessarily realize that this is bad for everyone. Like if the
Let me ask
forest,
you. Let me ask you this, Quinn. I like your idea. Consider it possible. What do you think? What do you think the Green Men are?
I think that the Green Men could potentially be hybrids between the Children of the Forest and First Men. That's what I think potentially.
Yeah, that's definitely one possibility. The wildest possibility is that they are some sort of taller Children of the Forest type creature.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too because like they could just be genetic isolation does weird things. And if they're isolated in one place, they could be different from the rest of them. They could just be a sect that just changed slightly over many thousands of years. So
So I think because the early on in the first book, there's interesting lines about Robert. Ned sees Robert and thinks back to his youth, and it was like Robert when he wore his antlered helm, he was like a horned god,
mm-hmm.
and the horned god of course, is like Cernunnos, who's basically a very tall Therian throat, an antler, a person that looks kind of like a stag man, if you will. He's got antlers on his head. And one of the stories about the Green Men is that they have antlers on their head. And the Cernunnos and the Green Man are essentially different versions of the same mythology. And the whole legend of Garth the Green is also drawn from that same folklore. He's a fertility god, a green man. He might have had stag antlers. So I think it's possible that the children of the forest, there's a third species that's in between the giants and the children of the forest. And
Mm-hmm.
there's some sort of stag man thing, and I
That's what the
think that
green
it's
men are.
possible. I think that that's what the green men are, and I think if the others are children of the forest, they might actually be green men because the
Ah,
others are tall. That's the
yes.
main problem with your theory is that children of the forest are short and
Well,
others are very tall.
they could have grown. Like that's my thing. Like the
True,
like
yeah, I know.
what weird magic that they come across. I think ultimately what they needed was to become stronger, more powerful. They needed because that's what made them lose. It just men were just stronger, bigger, stronger. They had better weapons, and you have the others. They're better than men. They're stronger than men. They've got better weapons than men. They've got better armor than men. So I think that's what happened. That's my little thing. But
Well, thematically, you're definitely right. Like whether the children turned humans or green men into White Walkers, or made them out of the Weirwood spirits, or turned into White Walkers themselves, the motivation is the same, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Ultimately, it all leads to the same place. It's all the same. It's all the same thematically. Let
So,
me.
hey, somebody in the chat, Radrick Davis, mentions that Cold Hands rides a stag.
Uh
That's
huh.
a great catch. Cold Hands is absolutely part of the clues about Stagman people, I think. And I've got a cool series on that called Sacred Order of Green Zombies 1, 2, and 3. And I talk about all of this Green Man folklore and my theories about the Green Men. And it also gets into the idea of John and resurrected skin changers and why there's all the zombies in the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
So I will use that as an opportunity to plug my YouTube channel, Lucifer Means Lightbringer, and check out the Sacred Order of Green Zombies if you'd like those ideas.
Yeah. Definitely check his stuff out. Let me get to this super chat question. I've had it waiting for a while.
Woo!
Fried
Super chat.
Fried Davis ask, "Is Battle Isle a hinge of the world like the Wall or a shy?" Um,
Oh yeah, could be.
let me. I should look at a map and see exactly where Battle Isle is located.
Battle Isle is Old Town. That's where
I
the High Tower is
Yeah.
built on.
Yeah, I know it's in Old Town. I'm gonna look at the exact location that it is on the map and see exactly the place where it is. Let's
So
see.
in old mythology, the hinges of the world are associated with like the idea about the four corners of the
Mm-hmm.
world, and there's a poem about it where basically all the floods and disasters come from the hinges of the world. I thought that was interesting
Mm-hmm.
because Ashai and the wall, Ashai had suffered a disaster, and when the wall comes down, it will be a disaster. So I think that's something Martin might be working with.
What's
But
interesting
I like the
about
idea.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say what's interesting about Battle Isle is the name itself. Like we have no idea why it's called Battle Isle, and I think that's just
I,
super interesting. Like
I
it's
have an idea.
Yeah, you do. Well, I mean, like the people of Westeros don't know. Like it's kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like lost to history, and I just find that really interesting. Like what happened there, and I think it
Oh,
could. I think
it's a giant red flag that's planted
yeah,
on there. But in the same paragraph, they also tell us that there's a rumor about the
deep
original high
ones.
towers, deep ones. There's a rumor about the original high towers putting dragons to death.
Uh
They
huh.
said that there were dragons roosting on the walls of the Fewstone Fortress when the first high towers got there,
Mm-hmm.
and that the high towers slayed those dragons.
Interesting.
So yeah, it is interesting because isn't Uthor Pendragon King Arthur's father? Didn't he kill all the dragons except for one?
Yeah. What's his name? Kilgara. It's
And the
Kil.
first High Tower was Uthor Hightower,
Uh huh.
and I definitely think that's meant as a corollary to Uthor Pendragon.
Yeah.
Pendragon means head dragon. So I look at the High Towers as like people from the Great Empire of the Dawn, the ancestors of Valyria, that basically turned against the Dark Lord, Bloodstone Emperor, and
Mm-hmm.
fought for Team Westeros. And I think the Danes did the same thing.
Here's a funny story about the show Merlin with the Arthurian legend. Like
Yeah,
I made a joke on Twitter the other day where I put up a picture of Kilgara, that like really shitty CGI dragon from the show, and I'm just
yeah.
like, this looks way better than Game of Thrones. You could take notes from Kilgara. And this one guy thought I was serious, and he got so fucking mad. He was like, "How dare you hate on the show? You know that fucking dragon sucks compared to Game of Thrones." I'm just like, dude, I was
dude,
obviously being sarcastic. If you
dude.
if you really think that I think Kilgara looks better than Drogon, then you need to take like 5 chill pills. Like, I wasn't serious. But yeah, I really like that. I like that high tower thing. I didn't even think about that in the Arthurian legends and stuff like that. And that's very
Yeah.
interesting.
So check this out. My theory about the long night is that it was caused by a meteor, which means that the thing that blocked the sun was basically smoke and ash and debris.
Hmm.
Now, the high tower sigil is a white tower crowned with flame on a smoke gray background.
Yes.
And that looks a lot to me like a white burning sword against a smoke gray background. And then
Hmm.
their words are, "We light the way," which sounds like more Lightbringer stuff.
Yeah.
And another interesting comparison, High Tower and Dane, is that they both have white towers that are built on islands at the mouth of a river. The Palestone Sword is the tower at Starfall, and obviously from the sigil, we can assume that the High Tower is white as well. And then there's a scene where it says the shadow of the High Tower cut the city like a sword. So we're even given a direct like sword equals tower kind of thing going on there. So all of that symbolism just kind of makes me wonder, like, yeah, high towers and Danes might be descended of dragon people, but they turned against the quote unquote the evil dragons. And Battle Isle essentially would have been the first battle in the War for the Dawn. It's where the dragon people from the east, the Bloodstone Emperor,
Hmm.
who I think is actually the same person as Azor Ahai, would have invaded Westeros at the place where their civilization built the Fewstone Fortress.
Battle Isle.
And that would be the battle.
Very, very interesting.
Because like I said, that whole section is about dragons.
Yes.
The high tower section of Battle Isle, they talk about dragons, they talk about foreign people coming there, maybe dragon people came to learn the magic of the children of the forest, and oh by the way, we don't know what battle there was, like planting a red flag on it, like
Hmm.
there's something here but we don't know what it was. Intent,
Yeah.
you should figure it out.
I like the idea that they came to learn the magic of the children of the forest because, if I lived in this world, I would want to learn all the possible magic that I could. I think that Melisandre, like Melisandre is an example of like how you get that much more powerful when you learn a different kind of magic, because she's not just a red priestess, she's also a shadow binder. So she has that extra, layer of magic. And the more magic you can learn, the better, I think. Like if I lived in this world, I'd just be collecting magical knowledge. I think that's the way to go. Collect as much as you possibly can. I'd have glass candles. I'd have a dragon. I'd be a shadow binder. I'd be worshiping the red god and looking in the fires. I'd be doing all that shit. I'd be the most powerful sorcerer in the entire world. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. Let's see what people in the chat are saying. Have anything give me.
So some of the nice thing about some of the tinfoil I've thrown out about the Green Men and the High Towers is that those are two things we should learn more about in the Winds of Winter. The High Towers, Old Town, the Sacred Order of Green Men on the Isle of Faces, and also my idea about Dany getting to use a glass candle. These are
Hmm.
all things we'll get answers to in the next book,
This
hopefully.
question from Joey Kitty kind of relates to that. He says that, or he, I don't know, says that, is magic going to be more prominent in the next 2 books? I think that absolutely. It's like, if you look at the story, it's gotten more prominent every book. Like every single book, there's more and more magic. So I think that when we get to Winds of Winter, it's going to be like all out, just magic everywhere. So I totally think that's going to happen. Totally. More magic. I'm super here for it.
Iron Throne is praying to the Lord of Light in the chat.
For the night is
I
dark
think
and
a
full of
bet
terrors.
I think a better question is how will Martin handle the obvious increase in magic that is coming? How will he stay true to the feel that he's built with A Song of Ice and Fire, while also giving us like the wall coming down, or maybe an ice dragon, or whatever else we're going to see?
If it builds on everything that he's already set up, then I think it'll be fine. Like, as he set up so much stuff that could potentially happen, and as long as it follows that train, and it's not something that just comes out of left field, then it'll work ultimately. And he's such a good writer. Like, I can't see him not making it work. You know?
I'm very looking forward to see how he does it. I'll just say
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, and to piggyback on the High Towers are fighting against Azor High and the Dragon Lords. In the modern storyline, there's pretty strong hints that the High Towers might have helped to kill off the dragons, the Targaryen dragons, during the Dance with the Dragons.
Yes,
And
there
that was
is.
part of what's happening in the Blacks and the Greens. And they also sponsor the Citadel, who are anti-magic. Even though Lord Leighton's up there in the tower, maybe doing spells. So
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if they're anti-magic, but they're definitely anti-dragon.
See, I think it's anti. I think it's just. I think it might be magic in general. See, the entire freaking Blackfire, like not the entire Dance with the Dance of Dragons, it's totally orchestrated. It didn't just happen. There was definitely like a big conspiracy going on, where some group, some entity intended to rid dragons from the world. I definitely think that's going on. That's definitely what's happening, and it involves the Citadel, probably involves the High Towers. It involves all that, you know. And the church, and Marwyn is kind of just like, I think Marwyn might even be like a plant. He's planted there to keep an eye on these maesters and see what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm so interested in Marwyn. He's one of my favorite characters. I mean, I think the chapter I'm looking forward to the most is the chapter where he surfaces in Slaver's Bay. He left at
Absolutely.
the end of A Feast for Crows,
Mm-hmm.
so he should be there by now,
Yeah.
or really soon.
Yeah. He'll be there. He'll show up, and like, I think that we might even get him talking to Daenerys through a glass candle. I don't. I'm like. I'm almost kind of. I'm almost don't even know why he hasn't appeared to Daenerys yet, in a glass candle. At least to be
Might
like,
freak her out.
yeah, he
Some
might.
old dude with like a bloody mouth from chewing all the sour leaf. He's like, "Hey, Danny,
I'm
I'm
coming
the
for you.
Mastiff, and I'm here to tell you what's up."
I'm coming for you, Daenerys. And she'd be like, what the fuck? The fuck did I just dream? What was
At
that?
least, at least, Quaithe when she did it, Danny already knew her.
Yeah, yeah. Like, cause see, that's the thing. Quaithe in the dreams, it was more like suggestion in the first book. It was like she was suggesting things, so like a voice, and then she actually reveals her face and she says, "This is me." And then after that, she shows up to Daenerys in dreams, like on top of the tower, like see when not tower but the pyramid. When Daenerys is on the pyramid, what happens is that Daenerys goes to sleep. She's not awake. She goes to sleep, and then she sees Quaithe, and she says, "Quaithe, are you?" And Quaithe is telling her that she's not dreaming because she's not. I guess technically she is dreaming, but what Quaithe is appearing. So Quaithe, I think dream implies that it's not real, but Quaithe is real, but it's still a dream. You know what I'm saying? So
And
that's why.
Quaithe is well. The important thing is that Quaithe is clearly indicating that she is appearing via glass cannon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like, otherwise, why would she say the glass candles are burning? That right there says, yeah, I'm using a glass candle to talk to you. So yeah.
So there's a good chat question here from Stormy 4400. Asked me, what is the importance of two Knights of the Vale being the first people killed by the others, and the War of Five Kings? Also, the Mountains of the Moon are opposite of Mountains of the Morn in Ashai. So I think that all of the moon symbolism of the Eyrie and House Arryn is very important. And I've got a lot to say about that, but it's probably more than I can encapsulate in a real quick bit. However, my new series is called Moons of Ice and Fire, and I will be doing a whole episode on all of the symbolism in the Vale, all of Sansa's scenes in the Vale, and I will be tearing into all of that stuff. So stay stay on the lookout for that. I will say real quickly that the my whole theory is that that the story about there being two moons in the sky in the old days are true. That there was two moons, and that like everything else in the story, one of the moons was associated with fire, and one of them was associated with ice. And the one that got hit by the comet and gave birth to dragons, which are meteors, would have been the fire moon. And the one that's still up there, I think, is the one associated with ice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one associated with the others, and I think that that's all tied together. So when you saw the whole point of the veil is that the veil symbolism is all snowy and icy. It's all blue and white, and there's lots of lunar symbolism. So basically, that whole place is symbolizing this ice moon, if you will, and so are the others. And so it's very important that two Knights of the Vale are the first people to confront the others. They're sort of both symbolizing a similar concept. I'll just probably leave it at that, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah, definitely check out LML's videos. He's got a lot of interesting things to say about the moons. A lot of interesting stuff. Someone asked, what's up, Quid? I just finished A Storm of Swords, about to start A Feast for Crows. Is Lady Stoneheart and Marwyn in Feast? Yes, they are both in A Feast for Crows. They do show up towards the end, but Stoneheart is kind of mentioned throughout Feast. So pay attention, pay attention. And someone else says, why are Old Nan's stories so accurate? Well, we're not entirely sure exactly how accurate her stories are. So like some of them I think are just pure myth, pure legend, and then some of them are accurate. I think that's just the way it is. Some might be more accurate than others.
it's not just Old Nan; it's all the old stories,
Yeah.
all the fishermen's tales, the singers, tales. Martin has a lot of fun with working with this sort of the bard's truth. I think that's where he explains it most thoroughly when Ygritte talks about the bard's truth, and
Mm-hmm.
basically saying there's truth to all these fables, but you just have to understand what kind of truth it is. It's a little bit symbolic and metaphorical and exaggerated, but there's a kernel of truth always underneath these stories. So
That's
when Old Nan says wildlings laid with the others to produce hybrid offsprings, I don't think that's literally possible because the others are so cold you can't even breathe around them. There's no way you could actually have sex with an other. However, I do think that there were hybrids and humans turned into others, or transformations through ice or something like that going on. So there's some truth in it.
Yeah, that's the key. Like you have to kind of like don't look at it. You can't look at a lot of this stuff literally. You have to look at what it means symbolically for the story. I think, and that's the way you should go about looking at all these legends and myths throughout A Song of Ice and Fire. Like they're not all going to be literal. I'm sure some of them have like elements that are literal, but for the most part, look at what it means thematically and symbolically.
So, for example, my whole theory is based on one of these old fables, which is one day there was a second moon in the sky, and it wandered too close to the sun. It cracked from the heat and cracked open and gave birth to 1,000 dragons. The dragons breathe the fire of the sun, and that's why dragons breathe flame. Now, this sounds totally silly, the idea of real dragons flying out of the moon. Obviously, that didn't happen. But if you understand that meteorites can be described as dragons because they fly and breathe fire, and that this has been done all throughout myth, then you can see that, oh, the moon cracked open and gave birth to meteors. That's what happened. And so this myth of giving a moon giving birth to dragons is just a stylized way to basically give you a historical account of some sort of meteor event that was traumatic. And I think this was actually the cause of the long night.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Do you think that Roderick Harlaw is in contact with Marwyn? He seems to be reading his book. Okay. Not.
Well, Roderick would need a glass candle, wouldn't he? I
Yeah,
don't think.
yeah. I'm not entirely sure how you made that connection. I don't. I
Oh,
don't.
maybe they just meant like by Raven, like maybe they ran
Oh,
into each other.
okay. Well, I'm.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, like perhaps. Like we don't really have any real evidence either way. I don't think. Okay.
I would love to see more Roderick the Reader.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd like it. There's lots of characters that I want to see more of. And like you said, yeah, I'm like, I can't wait till Marwyn shows up again. Well, I had one person that gave me like this kind of weird theory that I don't think this is true, but I thought it was interesting when they were telling it to me. They thought that Marwyn was actually McCorrell in disguise. That Marwyn was McCorrell, and I'm just like, I don't see. And I'm just like, I don't see how that really fits. Because then I'm
There's
like,
not enough. There's not enough black people in the Song of Ice and Fire. Don't tell me Makora's a fake black person.
the
Come on.
one black person is actually white. Is actually
Wah
white.
wah.
Yeah, that'd be a little that's a little bit too much.
Well, but
Okay.
the idea that Makoro might be disguised as somebody, I mean, maybe, but why would he even need to disguise himself as anyone? Nobody knows
Yeah.
who he is. He's just like a grimy looking middle aged dude.
Yeah, Victorian has no idea who he is. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, yeah, he just like it doesn't make sense for him to be in disguise unless he was someone that, everyone would recognize immediately, you know.
But he could be in Marine already waiting for Danny to, he might know that Danny's not in the city, so maybe he's waiting for her, or maybe he's gonna find her via glass candle, and any of that's possible.
Yeah, I don't think Marwyn is just like, oh yeah, I'm just here to help Victorian. No, Marwyn's got not Marwyn, Makoro. I don't think Makoro is just like, oh, I'm here to help Victorian. I think that he's definitely got his own. He's definitely got his own agenda. Like he is not serving House Greyjoy. He's just this is what he's doing for the time being. But you know,
Yeah, what do you think his agenda is?
Makoro. I think
Yeah.
I think that Makoro is okay. So I think that he's a servant of the Red God. I think that he sees something in Victorian that the Red God needs, and I think that Victorian's gonna end up being Marwyn's sacrifice for some purpose. 'Cause I think that the Red God I think that it'll be similar to how it is in the show that they'll be behind Daenerys because they see that dragons are fire made flesh. Like to them, a dragon has got to be like totally like sent from their god. This is like an animal that's totally created by their god. So I feel like he's there to kind of support Daenerys, but like I feel like they'd want Daenerys to work. I feel like they say they support Daenerys, but they kind of want Daenerys to work for them. You know what I mean? I feel like the Red Priesthood might have intentions for dragons, their own kind of intentions. You know what I mean? So that's what I think is going on with Makoro. I think he's a servant of the Red God, and he's doing what the visions and the flames tell him. Because I don't think he's given Victarion the full picture of what he's seeing in the flames actually. Because he even
So
said, "Go ahead."
there's a great line about this. Yeah, that he's playing him. Let's see here.
Is it the
Sorry, keep
every
talking.
Is it the
Yes,
every
it
night in
is.
my fires
Uh-huh.
the Lord shows me your worth or whatever
Yeah,
he
he
says?
says, the black priest bowed his head. There is no need. The Lord of Light has shown me your worth, Lord Captain. Every night in my fires, I glimpse the glory that awaits you.
Yeah, so that's fucking ominous. That's ominous as shit. If I was Victorian, I'd be like, "What?"
Well, and John even refers to this when Mel says something about seeing him in her fires, and he remarks about, "Oh, are you going to burn me?" or thinks something about that. So, like, George is even pointing us to this double entendre here.
Yeah, they love burning people. That's just like so their thing. Because death by fire is the purest death, and there's evidence in the story that sacrifice. There's a lot of evidence that sacrifice, gets results. It does. It does. And I think Victarion's definitely the sacrifice. And even Makoro even says to Victarion, he straight up says, "Your drowned god is a demon." He has no respect for Victarion's religion or the religion of these people. So Makoro has definitely got his own deal. Yeah, Victarion's getting burned. I agree. Review prior. Victarion is getting toasted.
At the same time, it's pretty cool that he has that fire hand. I'd like to see him do something with that.
Yeah, that's nuts. I like that. See, that's one reason I'm kind of pissed that Victoria's not on the show. I was looking forward to seeing that. Cause I'm just like, cause see, when this show came out, I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to see all this cool shit. And it's like I feel like 70% of the cool shit got cut. Like I really do. Like it's so much of the cool shit that I want to see, like Stoneheart, Victorian, like the Dorn shit, like all the cool shit got cut. It pissed me off. But let's not do that.
Yeah, and a lot of the magic got cut. So if they did
Yeah.
give us Victorian, he wouldn't have had a fire hand. I think it's safe to say.
No. And see, that's the thing. I get it. Magic is hard to write. It's a difficult thing to portray. You lose people. I feel like you lose certain people when you start to introduce more magic stuff. I even remember when Melisandre had the Shadow Baby. I like the show kind of lost some people because people were like, "Oh, now she can just do that. Why didn't she just do it all the time?" But then they kind of explain it because like she can't do it again because Stannis' fires burn low. At least she says it in the show. She says, "Your fires burn low, my king." So they were kind of doing it well back then. But that's when Martin was still on it, so he was kind of like, this is why certain things happen and this is the reason. But I think as far as the showrunners right now, they can't really write it as well as Martin, so they just kind of shy away from it, and then it's whatever.
Yeah, their writing tends to more the typical Hollywood stuff. I mean, Martin is atypical. His
Mm-hmm.
writing style is very unique in many ways. I mean, there's many ways in which it borrows from lots of things, but there's certain things he does that are pretty groundbreaking that you see a lot of other people doing now. And so, yeah, it's just one of those things. Like you're just not somebody else writing it's not going to be the same as him writing.
Yeah, and that's to be expected, really. But like, I want to talk about one thing that has nothing to do with the Song of Ice and Fire because a couple people have asked me to talk about this, so I will briefly. Twin Peaks. If we're talking about atypical writing, we gotta talk about Twin Peaks. Okay, so like the season ending of season 3 of Twin Peaks just ended, and it was like the craziest fucking shit. Like I recommend everybody watch Twin Peaks. Blow your fucking mind. I'm not even gonna tell you what it's about. I'm not even gonna tell you. Just like look, I'd say if you've never seen Twin Peaks, watch Twin Peaks: The Return, which is 25 years after the second season, which was like in the 80s. Watch that, and then go back and watch the original Twin Peaks. It'll blow your fucking mind. Like it's because like David Lynch, he's so all about like that subconscious shit. Like he's planting subconscious shit in your mind, and it's like a crazy, unique, weird way of storytelling. So I did watch it. It's fucking even better than the original Twin Peaks. There you go, Twin Peaks. So that those two or three people that asked me to talk about it. There you go. Now back to
That's cool. I haven't seen any of that.
people should watch it. It's nuts. Like I can't even tell people what it's about because I don't want to spoil anything. You just have to go watch it. You just have to do it and just bear with it, and like you're gonna be confused to shit for like for like 90% of the time you're gonna be confused, but like it's so good.
So let me throw some different. Let's go back to your latest video about the
Yes.
children of the forest and the others. I had another thought I wanted to throw at you. So the others are strongly tied to the woods, specifically the weirwoods. They're called the White Walkers of the Wood. Um, when they talk about Craster giving his babies to the others, they also phrase it as giving his sons to the wood. And there is one scene. You know how the others are frequently called white shadows.
Yes.
They are. It's like happens like 5 times. There's one scene where there's a weirwood frozen over with ice, and it says it's in the Vermeer prologue, and it calls it the pale shadow of a weirwood armored in ice.
Hmm.
And of course, the others are armored in ice also. So I think that there is a strong link between the weirwoods and the others. Then I already thought that. Then we saw in the TV show that the Night's King was turned while tied to a weirwood tree, and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of implies that the weirwood tree maybe had some sort of role in it. And my theory is that the others are only part humans or children of the forest. They're also part tree spirit. They're also part of the actual weirwood presence somehow inhabiting a corporeal form. They're tree ghosts in a sense. What do you
Dude,
think about that?
dude, George R. R. Martin literally calls them frozen she, which were nature spirits that like lived in
Right.
magic. Like he
That's kind
literally,
of what I'm saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
he literally says that. So I totally see that. Like all this magic, all the children's magic, this magic of the wild, it's all interconnected. It's all nature magic. That's what it is. It's all interconnected. It's literally just like the frozen form of it. So
Right.
yeah, I totally see that.
So I think that one way that that could happen gets me back to the Sacred Order of Green Zombies series that I did in Jon Snow's Resurrection. So think about this, all right? What we know about Jon Snow is that his, assuming he's dead, which I think he is,
Hmm.
his spirit has gone into Ghost, right? And
Yes.
then what we need to have happen is we need to resurrect his body, and we need to get Jon's spirit, or maybe merged Jon and Ghost spirit back into Jon's physical body so that he can be resurrected.
Yes.
Now, the thing is that Ghost parallels a weirwood tree. Jon says it many times. This one belongs to the old gods. He's blood and bone, just like the weirwoods, on and on. He's white with red eyes that look like blood. So you can take Ghost and swap out Ghost for a weirwood tree and swap out Jon for a green seer. So instead of a skin changer and his wolf, think about a green seer and his tree. And now let's repeat the same process. Let's kill the green seer. His spirit goes into his tree. Now let's resurrect the body and somehow get the spirit that's in the tree and merged with the weirwood net now. Let's cut that spirit out of the weirwood net and put it back in the resurrected body. Now you have the weirwood net body snatching a corpse, essentially.
Uh-huh.
And the White Walkers could be something like this.
Wow, that
What
is
do you
some
think about
crazy
that?
shit. I
It's one of
like
the
it.
crazier things I've thought of. Yeah, I'm not sure that that's the case. I'm just sort of like feeling around in the dark. There's some sort of link between the weirwoods and the others. There's got to be some mechanism for the weirwood net consciousness to somehow get into an other.
I like
And I'm just
I like the idea of like those consciousness, those individual consciousness inside of the net, inhabiting bodies in corporeal form. I like that a lot. I think that's super interesting.
and it's really freaky. It's
Yeah,
exactly the kind of thing that George Martin would go for: is trees body snatching people, right?
yeah. I like it a lot. Honestly, that's a very neat idea, and I
I
think I
thought you might
think
like that one.
I think and I think it's a possibility too. That's something that I really haven't considered, but I like it a lot. I do.
And a related theory is that in the books, we're not going to get a physical Night's King like we have in the show,
Mm-hmm.
but perhaps Night King lives inside the Weirwood net somewhere. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like he's inside the Weirwood net, raising the dead and animating the others and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Bran will confront him inside the Weirwood net. That's my favorite thing that the show's done, actually, is to show us Bran confronting the Night's King inside of a Weirwood Net vision. I
Mm-hmm.
think that they're onto something there, and that in the books we're going to see Bran confront the Night's King inside the Weirwood Net.
Because that's something that you can do in a book series. This more
Yeah,
abstract scene where it's really like a battle of minds and it's not like a physical battle. And that's something that I thought for a long time. Now that in the end it'd be more like a battle of minds between Bran and the quote unquote Night King. It'd be a mind battle thing because there's no physical form, and that's why Bran's inside of the net in the first place. So I like it.
so check this out, and this is another thing that relates to your theory that I thought you would like. I'm
Okay.
just going to read this. This is in Bran's penultimate coma dream, where he sees into the heart of winter,
Mm-hmm.
and the crow says, "Now you know why you must live." And he says, "Why?" And he says, "Because winter is coming." Bran
Mm-hmm.
looked at the crow on his shoulder, and the crow looked back. It had three eyes, and a third eye was full of a terrible knowledge. Bran looked down. There was nothing below him but snow and cold and death, a frozen wasteland where jagged blue-white spires of ice waited to embrace him. They flew up at him like spears. He saw the bones of 1,000 other dreamers impaled upon their points.
Hmm.
So, what do you think those are? Because I have an idea about
What's your idea about it? I'm not entirely sure. Well, maybe there are other
that.
there are other people that entered the werewood net and were killed, or like their consciousnesses were consumed by something that's inside of it, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think those could be, those are the green seers, whether they're children or humans, those are the green seers that were turned into the others right there.
Ah.
That's like a depiction of them inside the Weirwood net. Because where's impalement is a method of transformation in the Song of Ice and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Azor Ahai stabbed Nissa Nissa with Lightbringer, and then the show gave us, the dragon glass into the heart to transform the Night's King. And I think that and also I guess the Night King's spear that killed the dragon and then helped transform him. So maybe that's what's being symbolized here is the dreamers that were turned into others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it because it doesn't straight up tell you. It's more just like symbolic, and that's how the dreams really are usually are in this series. It's more like it's always symbolic of something else. You very rarely see what's actually going on. I got a super chat. I'm not sure what it means. He says, "Duh, we see the control room in the cave with Bran." I'm not entirely sure what you're trying to
He's
say.
talking about the idea that the others are tied to the Weirwoods and that Bloodraven controls the others. I think he's talking about.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, I've heard the idea that Bloodraven controls the others, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that Bloodraven
I don't either. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's going on ultimately. I mean, I like before I kind of used to think that maybe there was a possibility that the remaining children were working with the others. I think that kind of now, I think now they either genuinely want to help stop them or they're kind of just indifferent. And I think maybe they'll even just let, the others take out mankind. And then they might try their own, maybe they have their own idea how to stop them afterward. I think that'd be interesting. If like the children just kind of like let them kill everybody and then the
Well, what's
children end up fighting them in the end. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty dark. I tend I tend to think the children of the forest are kind of just like nature spirits in that they're vengeful if you hurt nature. They're basically trying to protect nature. I believe they'll do some sort of messed up stuff in order to protect nature, especially because man is destroying nature. But I don't think they're quite as nefarious as some people think.
I don't
But
think
let
they're
me,
evil.
okay,
I agree with you. I think they're like like the she. They're fierce guardians of their homes, of nature.
yeah,
If you fuck with
exactly.
nature, you're fucking with them. And when men got to Westeros and they started chopping down trees and chopping down werewood trees, they're literally killing the children. They're literally killing them. That men attacked first. Men attacked first. But when as soon as they put an axe on a werewood tree, they attack the children. And of course the children are going to be vicious. Like these people are burning shit, they're chopping down trees, they're making animals go extinct. Mankind is literally like in not just in this world but in our world we fuck shit up like bad. Like we have ruined it. Like I'm going to go on like a crazy liberal rant now. Like we have ruined this fucking planet in like 150 years. We have just fucked shit up beyond repair. The planet's getting hot. Just look at the world now. If I wish the children of the forest were here to fuck our shit up a little bit, because we're doing too like yeah. I mean we deserve to be fucked. We deserve to be. I kind of feel like
Well,
we
and
deserve it.
even before the pollution issue, the idea of vengeful nature spirits is simply that, yeah, exactly right, Joe Kitty. You don't fuck with nature. Like, if you don't know exactly where you are and what you're doing and where you're going to get food and who the local predators are, your ass is going to get killed if you don't know your environment. And so that's the idea. Is like people, especially in ancient times, they really lived at the mercy of nature in a lot of ways, and you had to know when storms were coming
Hmm.
and what to do. So, I
I've
think
heard it.
that's the idea.
I've heard it said that you didn't like now like the planet is sick and we are the disease. Like right now the planet's kind of running a fever, and it is like the planet has a fever. We're the disease. This shot gave me a super chat and he says Rhaegar stabbing Lyanna with his sword impalement. I've heard this idea that Rhaegar stabbed Lyanna and that's why she's dying.
Oh, I
But
thought he meant it as a sexual joke.
uh, maybe I don't know. But
Maybe I was giving him too much credit.
yeah, I have
because
heard.
I
I
because
have heard that
this
theory.
intercourse is part of the Lightbringer metaphor, so
Uh huh.
it's a different kind of stabbing, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But I have heard people say that Rhaegar stabbed Lyanna because he was trying to do some Lightbringer type shit with her. But I don't think that's what. I don't think he would have risked the child dying.
That would be hilarious if like there's that big of a difference between the show and the books. Like in the show gives us like the pretty wedding in front of the tree, and George Martin's like, no, he used her as blood sacrifice.
Dude,
That'd be funny.
you know,
Which, yes,
a lot of people have been pointing out recently that Rhaegar and Lyanna are just total fucking dicks for what they did. Letting all these people die while they're just like having fun and fucking in a tower somewhere in Dorne, and everyone else is just fucking dying trying to find you two. Like holy shit! And you're doing all this why? But ultimately, I think Rhaegar manipulated Lyanna. I think that Rhaegar was obsessed with this prophecy. He manipulated Lyanna. I don't think he ever really loved her. I don't think he ever really loved her. I think he saw her as a means to fulfill a prophecy, and that's what happened. And that's what I think.
yeah, that's. Thank you, John Lynn. The planet has a fever, and the only cure is more cowbell.
Uh, the only cure is to
Thank
cut
you.
taxes for the rich. No, I'm kidding.
So, sorry, let me say one more thing about the bones of the dreamers impaled on the ice spires in Bran's vision. Is that
Sure.
at that moment, Bran is falling towards those spires. So it's strongly implied that if Bran does the wrong thing, he could end up impaled on those ice spires. And I think
Mm.
that's very
Mm.
true in the sense of green seers can become the others.
Yeah.
if they do the wrong thing. Like that's what it's hinting at.
Hmm.
If those impaled dreamers do represent others, like I think, then that's what it's saying, is that Bran can do that if he goes wrong.
Like, you have to be careful. There's real danger here, and that's what I like. That no one's really safe. There's no safe place that you can be. There's always danger, and there's danger inside the werewood net. I feel like there obviously. I think there are other things that live there, other things that might not be super not friendly or nice. So yeah, it's not completely safe at all.
Hey, let me ask you this, Quinn, as a little bit out of left field, because I'm going to talk about this in my next episode. Do you think it's possible that Dawn is the original ice of House Stark? And just to frame that for everybody, we're told in the books that Ned's Valyrian steel ice is 400 years old, but that the name goes back to the Age of Heroes. So that
Mm.
implies
There
that
was
the
another
Starks,
sword.
well, one or maybe many, but the tradition of naming swords ice goes back 8, 10,000 years or so. And so, do you think it's possible that the big white sword, okay, is the original ice of House Stark?
I think it's certainly possible because you think of the way it looks. If it's like white and kind of like it looks like ice. So I think that's certainly
Right. It's
possible. And then like sometime throughout history, it kind of went to House Dane. We don't know what really how it could happen, but yeah, it's distinct possibility. I think.
so Dawn is pale as milk glass and alive with light, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Famous description. So in a storm of swords, Sam stabs an other, and it says, Sam rolled onto his side, eyes wide, as the other shrank and puddled, dissolving away. In 20 heartbeats, its flesh was gone, swirling away in a fine white mist. Beneath were bones like milk glass, pale and shiny, and they were melting too. Finally, only the dragon glass dagger remained.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that Dawn is made out of the shin bone of a White Walker, but I'm saying that both the bones of the others and Dawn are compared to milk glass,
Uh huh.
and that's kind of interesting, right?
I
And then go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I think it's really cool, but continue.
Well, then there's just a ton more shared symbolism. Well, okay, so ice, the current Valerian steel ice is dark gray. I'm responding to David Hunter in the chat. Um, I just said it. Basically, Ned's Valyrian steel sword is 400 years old, but the name ice goes back thousands and thousands of years, and so there is some original ice sword. I'm suggesting that it might have been Dawn because it's the big white sword. Now, but think about it like this, okay? There's a good chance that Dawn might be Lightbringer or have something to do with that legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a theory that's out there. It would make a certain amount of sense if it was true.
That's what I think.
Then, right, okay, so then the last hero had something called Dragon Steel. And just like Azor Ahai, the last hero fought against the Long Night with a sword. Azor Ahai had Lightbringer, last hero had Dragon Steel. And if it's easy to see how a sword made from a meteorite could be dragon steel because meteors can be dragons.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an equally plausible theory that the dragon steel of the last hero is Dawn. And the last hero might have been a Stark, right?
Yes.
So it's very possible that we had a Stark last hero wielding Dawn as Dragonsteel.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's true, then yeah, why wouldn't that be the original sword called Ice? Because it's a friggin' big white sword that looks like the shin bone of another.
It makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, I like it a lot. Ice just fits perfectly with the name. It really does. If I mean, it fits perfectly with the way the sword looks. It's almost too much not to like. It definitely makes you think. It's definitely something that you have to consider. Like just the appearance of the sword alone. Like, I think it's very interesting. I like it. I like it a
Cool.
lot.
Well, I'll have a full theory on that forthcoming in like a couple weeks. So
So everyone can
I'll
look
have the
forward to
whole.
that.
Yep.
And we know that I might as well just talk about this. I've got my Dune stuff coming, guys. So the first video is gonna be, an introduction into the Dune universe, and then I'm gonna do Dune. I'm gonna do Dune Messiah. I'm gonna do Children of Dune. I'm gonna do God Emperor of Dune, which is like my super favorite. It's totally nuts. Just gotta pull up an image of God Emperor of Dune just to show you,
Are
show
you
you
going to
what's
be
going on.
sort of comparing those to A Song of Ice and Fire, or just covering?
I definitely will make some comparisons, but for the most part, it's gonna be just exploring Dune. See, you see this fucked up worm guy right here? Yeah, that's the God Emperor of Dune, Leto the Second, and that's all you need to know. Like seriously, like he's Bran, guys. This is Bran. Say hello to Bran. That's all I'm gonna say. But look forward to that coming soon. But yeah, let's get back.
Nice. I need to. I haven't read all those books. I'll have to read some of them so I can follow your series. I
Dude,
really.
well, my series will be an introduction, so maybe if you can read them if you want. But I obviously recommend reading them. Like, there's so much to be learned from Dune. It's just like it's the most brilliant, fantastic thing. And then God Emperor specifically, there's so it's there's so much philosophy because like the God Emperor is like the next level of enlightenment. Like Paul was, like Jessica was aware. Paul was like a step above that. Aaliyah was aware, but then Leto, once he becomes the God Emperor, he's like through the fucking roof. He's super aware of the present and the past and time and humans and everything. He's just like he's the closest thing to God that's ever existed. And don't take that any type of fucking way, but I'm just saying like he's the closest thing to like a physical God that's ever existed. So it makes sense that he's the God Emperor of Dune. How do they travel in the Dune series? Well, they have these things called Heisman engines, right? And they have these people called guildsmen, navigators, right? And they ingest a bunch of spice and they go through like this spice evolution, right? And they get all fucked up and they live in tanks and they like have like fish hands and stuff. And like they take a bunch of spice and the spice makes them like super aware of like space time, so they're able to like navigate through the universe using the engines. It's like it's crazy shit. It's crazy shit. Like Dune is not like it's not simple. It's not simple, and there's no simple way to describe it. That's why it's taking me so long to get this series out. Like I've written I'd say like 70, 80 pages already of stuff that I gotta do. It's almost done, and then I'm gonna start doing the audio and getting everything through. So look for that in the coming weeks. Yes, please read the books before watching the movies. The movies are just not the deal at all. At
Well,
all.
see, I saw the movie as a kid, and since I was young and hadn't read the books, I always thought the movie was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the experience of reading the book and being like, oh, okay, well, obviously on another level.
Yeah.
So it can work like that, I guess. Because once you read the books, then you might hate the movie like you do.
Mm-hmm. I don't hate the movie. Like the David Lynch
Okay, all
movie,
right.
I think it's a beautiful movie. I think the first like hour of it is like it's pretty good, and then it kind of just falls apart at the end. Like they totally fucked up the weirding way. Like the weirding way in the movie is just like some gun sound thing. And like in the book, it's like this weird, crazy fucking martial arts that the Bene Gesserit do, and I have a video on the Bene Gesserit, and if you want to learn about the weirding way, people, so check that out. So we're gonna go for a little bit longer on this live stream. If you guys got any questions, now is the time. I'm looking at the chat. I'm literally gonna just stare at the chat until I see questions. I'm gonna answer the first thing that I see. Do 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 do. Wasn't there a TV series of Dune? There was a mini series, and it goes from Dune to Children of Dune, and it follows the book pretty closely, except it's really cheap. So George R. Martin is a human, true, but so is Einstein. Geniuses are meta-humans, in my opinion. I mean, they're still human. Lucifer means Lightbringer. Do you think an epidemic will hit Westeros, like Pale Mare or Grayscale? There are hints at something as I think that it will. I think that John Connington, the fact that he's in
Yeah.
Westeros with Grayscale, is telling you right now that some shit's gonna get released. And I even think that there's a possibility that it's still in the show that Sam is infected and that Sam might unleash some shit. So I think
I
that
just,
might happen too. So, but I don't
I
know if they're
just
gonna.
banned I just banned somebody for saying rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off at the idea that George is a genius. So I won't take slights to George like that. So
Why George R. Martin is a genius. Like
absolutely.
I've said it a million times. He's a genius. He like there's like you can't like if you can write a story like a Song of Ice and Fire, then you're a genius. Like there's that's all there is to it. Like most of us could never do this.
Yeah, so I definitely think there is some sort of epidemic coming. My question is not if it's coming, but what is George doing with grayscale? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's some more important magical purpose, and it's linked to the Targaryens because we're told grayscale originated when Garen, Green Garen of the Rhoynar, laid a curse on the Valyrians as they basically slaughtered his entire people, and that the foul humors of the river basically rose up in the night and turned a bunch of dragon lords into stone men with grayscale.
Thomas,
So
no,
you
continue.
never heard that?
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard it. I've definitely heard it.
So what do you think? What do you think he's doing with grayscale? That's my question.
Okay, well, when it comes to grayscale, I think like the fact that John Connington has grayscale, I think that it means that something is gonna. Let me think. So I've never really thought of it as like kind of like a magical thing, even though I know the legends and the origin of it. I've always just kind of thought that what would happen would be that it'd be something like John Connington accidentally infecting Aegon, and there's kind of an outbreak, but then it kind of gets squashed later on, or maybe people with grayscale can't be affected by the whites or something like that. I don't know.
Right, that's kind of where I was going with it. Is there
Mm-hmm.
some sort of immunity to one of the
Mm-hmm.
menaces in the world?
Yeah. So yeah, it's something like that. But Thomas Malone asked a really interesting question, I think, about Euron. He said, does Euron want to become a god? If so, is telling Aeron, a holy man, to pray for him a way to achieve this? Do other gods work like this? Prayer and sacrifice giving them power? Yes, Thomas. Power resides where men believe it resides. Like that's the thing. Like you can make somebody a god by praying to them. If enough people pray to someone, they're a god. If people believe you've got this power, you have that power. It's all a fucking illusion, anyways. It's all an illusion. Power is an illusion. So yeah, I think like the praying to someone, if enough people get together and enough people pray, it makes you a god. Yeah, that's how
Are you,
gods are born.
are you familiar with Plato's allegory of the cave?
What it Explain it to me.
Oh boy. I don't know if I can do a good job explaining it, but basically, there's people in a wall, in a cave, and they're looking at shadows on a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about the setup where they can't turn around and see what's making the shadows. And so, to them, the entire whole of reality are these shadows on the wall.
Hmm.
But to somebody who can turn around and see who's making the shadows, then there's a whole nother dimension to reality. And
Yes.
so when you talk about when he says that power is a shadow on the wall, and I apologize, I'm probably doing a poor job of paraphrasing Plato's allegory of the cave. I've heard it years ago, but it's the same. I think that's what he's hitting on, and it's got a lot of the same ideas as far as your perception. Wherever you see power is where it is, and if you can control people's perceptions, then you have power.
Absolutely. And I think, belief is a powerful thing. He thrust his fist against the post and still insists he sees the ghost. It's like you can hit somebody dead in the face with like the truth of something and they still won't believe it. People believe what they want to believe. Like the ghost is fake. It's hanging on a post and you're thrusting your fist against it, but you still believe it's real because that's what you want to believe. And I think that's what goes on. People ultimately believe what they want to believe, and belief has power. Belief is definitely powerful. So yeah, that's my take on that. That is my take. Let's see what else we got here. That's what I thought too. Lucifer means Lightbringer. This is the question for you, Lucifer. Will the Crypts come into play next season? Will they be shown multiple times last season? Wait, they were shown multiple times last season. You there, Lucifer? Lucifer! Satan! I don't know what
Oh,
happened.
you
There he is.
summoned me.
Someone's
Busy
asking.
torturing some puny mortals. I am sorry.
Someone's asking a question about the Crypts.
No,
Uh,
I heard the question.
mm-hmm,
I'm not sure about the show. I never know what the show's going to do.
mm-hmm.
But I definitely. Okay, so in the show, my prediction is that Danny and John will do it in the Crips.
In the Crypts.
Crips. It'll be Crip sex, and Twitter will go crazy.
Okay.
In the books, I think more freaky things will happen there. And I think all the dreams that John's been having about the crypts is pointing towards something very important, something more than Rhaegar's harp.
Uh,
So we'll see what it is. But
Jon Snow will do it in the crypts, and they'll trip, and they'll break a statue, and it'll fall, and a crypt will break open, and then Lightbringer will be inside of the crypt.
okay.
That's what's gonna happen. That's definitely happening. I'm 100%. You can definitely quote me on it. I'm right. I have insight. George R. R. Martin literally told me this himself. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. By the way,
Yeah, the crypt sex would be good though. I don't know. They might have a hard time
can I just
holding off on
say,
that.
Patrick Rothfuss, you motherfucker. Patrick Rothfuss, the writer of the King Killer Chronicles. This piece of shit yesterday is like, oh, I've got a new announcement tomorrow. And then I'm waiting for it, and this asshole deletes the tweet like it never happened. And we're waiting for like the last book in his King Killer
He
Chronicles
deleted the
series.
tweet.
Yes, he deleted the tweet.
Oh,
And I was just like,
oh,
you piece of shit.
oh man.
How dare you? It's just like motherfucker. At least George R. R. Martin, he'll troll us and then leave the tweet up, deleting the tweet like we never saw it. Ah, what you doing, Patrick? I got another super chat. It looks like Darth Whiffy says, "Is
No.
Rhaegar still alive in the books and or show?" No. Robert dreaming about killing him every night reminds me of my own war flashbacks, if that makes sense. Ah, you were in the war. Interesting. Um,
Yeah,
um
he mentioned being in Iraq. Yeah, in the chat.
mm-hmm. Yeah, very very interesting. But as far as Rhaegar being alive, I don't think Rhaegar's alive. I know some people think he's Mance Rayder. I know that's an idea that's been floating around. I think Rhaegar is dead. He's dead, 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 dead. He's not showing up again.
But to the second point that he makes, I think George is very much interested in the idea of people being haunted by
The
traumatic
past.
experiences that define them. Yeah, there's a lot of
Mm,
that.
yeah. Yeah, look at Ned. Like Ned is super haunted by his past. It's like a ghost that's following him around everywhere. No matter even in King's Landing, he can't escape it. It's like it's everywhere. Everywhere he goes, it'll always be there. Very very interesting. And I think all of us are like that in a way. Like most of us can't escape our past. It's always with us. King Killer Chronicles is amazing. Any idea when the next book is coming? The freak as I know. See, Patrick Rothfuss gets away with it because like he doesn't have like a gigantic show based off of his books now, so he gets away with taking his time, even though it's been literally the exact same amount of time between his last book and between like George R. R. Martin's last book. It's been 6 years on both of them, but Patrick Rothfuss gets away with it. We have no idea when it's coming out. I hope soon though. Like I'm ready to read it. Like I'm so ready. I want to know. I want to know what's
Hey,
going on.
hey, so somebody in the chat is asking, Brandon Overdose asks, what is Littlefinger's role? He started this war? Question mark. I
Chaos.
want to shout out Gray Area's video that she made 6 days ago called "The Truth About Robert's Rebellion," because she thinks Littlefinger actually started Robert's Rebellion and played a role in sort of lying to Brandon about Lyanna being abducted. And
Mm-hmm.
she makes a really good case. I was pretty well convinced. So if you're interested in Littlefinger's role in the war, then I definitely recommend Gray Area. That's YouTube. The channel is just called Gray Area, if you haven't heard of that.
Definitely check out Gray Area. Like we have a couple podcasts together. There's one on my channel with me and her and Secrets of the Citadel. Like she's awesome. We chat all the time on Twitter. She's freaking fantastic. She's sometimes she shows up in the comment section on my streams too. So yeah, Gray Area. Like that's one of like I definitely recommend that channel. Someone says is Chapter House doing good? Yes. All the Doom books are good except they end before Frank Herbert really could have really finished them. But like at the same time, each book is like its own thing, so it doesn't really matter as much. Like a Song of Ice and Fire is like one big story, but Dune, each book, although they all connect, each book is its own thing. So have you considered if George R. R. Martin is making climate change analogy? Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Hello.
It's like, just look at it. Like they've got like literal winter is coming, and then everyone's just like literally hiding their heads in the sand, pretending like it doesn't exist, putting their fingers in their ears, doing nothing about it, doing that. And you got Jon Snow like, hey, we're all gonna fucking die, and everyone's just like, yeah, whatever. And that's I totally see that in the real world right now. It's like, the planet's getting really hot, and in like 50 years we're all gonna be pretty fucked, and everyone's just got their finger in their ears like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Don't want to hear it. So I see
Hey,
that.
Katie Alexis says to you, Quinn, I love your bitchy reviews so much. They are cathartic for me. I just want to second the notion.
See,
The last one that you did, was laughing so hard. I forget which one it was, but you did some stupid little voice to impersonate somebody, and my wife and I were cracking up.
like Game of Thrones fanboy 26.
Yeah,
And
that's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was.
and you see, the thing is, everything that I said was totally fucking comments that people leave in my videos. Like, I did none of that was embellishment. These are literally what people say to me. Like, it's fantasy. It doesn't have to make sense. I want to kill you. I want to kill you when you say that. Like, if you like people that come like, it's fantasy. It doesn't have to make. I literally want to fucking strangle you like the Valonqar. Like, because this is the dumbest shit that I've ever heard. You have no respect for this genre. It just pisses me the fuck off.
Well, look, Quinn, you and I are both people that aren't critical of things and get worked up about things, and you have to make it funny, or else you just seem like an angry guy. That's all I can
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
So good job.
yeah. Okay, we're gonna do a few more questions before we go. Do you think Maester Yindel's map of Essos is slightly wrong, and the Far East should actually be more north, having it join the land beyond the wall at the North Pole? See, the thing about maps is like a flat map is gonna be off anyways, because you have to stretch out things to make them flat. And then also, yeah, I think that it potentially could be wrong. We don't we like, how is he supposed to know exactly what it looks like? So yeah, yes and yes. Do you have any thought about that, LML?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I don't think it's anything we're ever gonna know for sure.
Yeah.
We're not gonna learn the answer to it, but it could be that Martin wants to imply that. He
Mm-hmm.
does talk about the idea of a northern passage, or the rumor of a northern passage that people were trying to find via ship. So it just gives you the idea of like going around the world, quote unquote, going over the world. But
Ooh.
I think that I think the truth is that Azor Ahai has something to do with the Night's King and the creation of the others. But I think that Azor Ahai came to Westeros by boat, sailing to Old Town. So I don't think there was a northern passage. I don't think that's necessary. But I do think the idea that the demons in the Grey Waste near Ashai might be their local version of the others.
Uh
That
huh.
seems to make sense to me.
That seems like what's going on. It's like the same setup and situation. Someone says, "Do you think Euron is purposely spreading blood in the ocean to lure krakens?" Makoros omens told about Euron like a character sailing a sea of blood, and krakens are mentioned in the sample chapter. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that. See, I had wondered at like when a kraken was gonna show up, because I feel like a kraken might show up, and I feel like that's interesting. I haven't thought about it, but I don't know if that's exactly what he's doing. But I like the theory. I do. Should I read Dune or Lord of the Rings first? Read Dune. Lord of the Rings is boring. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tolkien fans.
It's a lot of poetic language if you
Yeah,
say that.
like I know Tolkien people get mad at me when I say that. I mean, I love Lord of the Rings. I can read it, but I'm just saying, like, most people would get bored reading Lord of the Rings. I'm just gonna tell you straight up. Like, cause they're like, in like, you open Lord of the Rings, like in like the first like 20-30 pages is literally just like Hobbit life. Like, this is what hobbits are doing. They're like, this is what Hobbit houses looks like. This is what hobbits do in their free time. Hobbit, Hobbit, Hobbit. Before you even get to the story. So yeah, that's Tolkien. But Dune is just like, you get right into it, and it's just like you're just blown away by it immediately. So, all right,
Yes.
guys. Well,
Somebody asked, do I think the books will have a cyclical ending? Even though George said it will be bittersweet, in the sense you eliminate conflict by wiping out humanity. I don't think humanity will be wiped out, but like I
uh-uh.
said, dragons and others might be gone. And
Mo-
I think everything is cyclical in A Song of Ice and Fire, but sometimes the cycle comes out with a different answer, so that it's like similar but different. So it's hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah, like people aren't gonna be gone. Obviously, it's gonna be the more fantastical elements of the world that leave. So it's not gonna be people. So yeah, yeah. So guys, we've gone for just over 2 hours now. I think it's
Oh,
time.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's time to wind down here. Thanks everyone for joining us. Lucifer, you want to give your outro?
Yep.
Dark Lord.
I'm super easy to find on the internet. If you type in Lucifer Means Lightbringer, all my stuff will come up. My YouTube channel is called Lucifer Means Lightbringer. My main website that has all my essays and podcasts is called lucifermeanslightbringer.com. And I would just recommend that you start with my video that's at the top of lucifermeanslightbringer.com and also my YouTube page. Watch that. It's like half an hour. If you're interested, then listen to the podcast. There you
I think it's funny that even though your name literally says Lucifer means Lightbringer, people still think it's like a Christian thing that you're like Satan. I guess I'm not helping by calling you Satan on this live stream,
go. Well,
but
I think it's all in good fun.
yeah,
It's part of the humor. So
yeah.
I mean, mythology is full of humor. So
Mm. All right,
and
and
that's all we're really talking about is mythology.
yeah, and everyone knows me. I do the Vestifier. Like I said, check out my Patreon. I've got like exclusive content on my Patreon. I've got over an hour currently, and I'm talking about Song of Ice and Fire, and I'm talking about some legends, and I've got some other book stuff too. So over an hour, adding new stuff to it every single month, twice a month. I'm gonna try and do, and like all patrons, it doesn't matter how much you donate, you get the exclusive content. And yeah, so check that out, and you know, goodbye everyone,
Yeah, thanks for
peace.
all the great chat questions, people. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. If you want to make sure your question gets answered though, I do live streams every Thursday, obviously, and Patreon people, I always answer you guys' questions. So, and I post on Patreon. I'm doing a live stream. I let you guys throw me questions for the live stream. Actually, the whole theme of this chat with Marwyn and Quaithe was a Patreon question. So yeah. But bye everyone. We'll see ya. Adios. The night is dark and full of terrors. Peace out. Bye. Live long and prosper. I watched the Orville, by the way. Fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. Not even excited for Star Trek Discovery, but the Orville, that was my shit. It was good. I liked it. It's not as smart as Star Trek The Next Generation, but who gives a shit? It's fun. But anyways, bye. Peace.
Peace.